Hello. Hey. Hi. There's a couple things missing this stream because the holiday seasons are over, but we're back and we're in 2023 now officially. So it's good to be here. It's good to finally be in this year that we've been building up for a while. But we have now officially started moseying along, and I am now officially doing a standard schedule. For once. Last time I did a standard schedule was back late November, early December. And I wanted to be a bit more consistent, so we're being a bit more consistent now. Today, to kick off 2023 proper, I wanted to play Minecraft again. But unlike the first time I played where I built a tree, and the second time I played where I failed a challenge because I'm bad at speedrunning, this time I realized I just really want to play Minecraft. It's relaxing, it takes my mind off a lot of stuff, and I can also sort of, I can use some creative energy to build things in this block game. And because that's my favorite thing to do in Minecraft is build things. So the plan is we hop into Minecraft, we start up a new world, I start properly surviving, hopefully don't die, and I talk about random stuff, as I usually do, because you know me, I talk about anything that comes to mind within roughly 5 seconds of the idea popping in. So, without further ado, let's actually play properly this time Minecraft. Give me 1 second. There we are. And it looks like the game crashed. Well, that was fast. All right, let me start it back up. I don't know why the game crashed. Just checking some audio settings as before we start this whole menagerie. But yeah, I really wanted to play Minecraft. So I decided to make this a very Monday thing. So this will be obviously the first Monday I play Minecraft, but probably for subsequent Mondays, unless I decide to spice things up, it'll probably be Minecraft stuff. And depending on if I'm doing survival or things come up in the future where I do something else, it's probably still going to be Minecraft. So you can see all the worlds we've done so far. For instance, the fact that the 15-minute inventory, the first one, took 5 hours for me to figure out that it was a bad save. And then the second one took 4 hours before I failed the challenge. So, not everything can be a winner. Also, I have added a couple things to make it slightly less boring. So, first things first. Sorry, I have to mess with something. There we go. Okay. First things first, we're going to properly pick a world name. There are a bunch of options I could go with. I could go with dumb. I could go with, smart, keeping it real. But I think I'm going to go with dumb. So, I don't know. Probably something, I don't know, boringus. There. Sure. We'll go with boringus. Survival as always, no cheats because that's mean. And then there's game rules that I don't care about. When I play survival Minecraft, I usually pick hard. And there is a reason for that. Yes, you take more damage, and yes, everything hurts, but at the same time, there are a couple game mechanics that require you to play on hard. And in order to get a steady flow of resources and such, it's always a good idea to pick hard. You can always pick peaceful as well, but that's no fun, because then you don't have to deal with mobs. And a lot of mob drops are unattainable because, they don't spawn in peaceful. So I usually go with hard. But yeah, as I was saying, I added a couple things to this Minecraft client so that it's not boring generico shaderless, textureless Minecraft anymore. It looks like it was made slightly after 2008, you know? And that's how I do like to play, because Minecraft at this point is somewhat outdated to an extent. It still holds its own amazingly after math, 14 years. 13 years, 14 years, not sure. But you know, it definitely needs some polish in places. And we're in a jungle? Wow, okay. I love how I spawn on top of a tree, so the first thing I have to do is break my ankles. Wow, we're in a jungle. That's a first. I usually spawn in snow biomes half of the time. You probably see on my 15-minute inventory stream that I was really not happy with spawning in snow again. I told you it'd break my ankles. Wow, I actually am shocked we're in a jungle. This is a first for me. While we're here, though, I might as well knock down a couple jungle trees, because I swear these things are so rare sometimes. I'm not gonna stay here. Jungles are far too dense. I could do some really cool build ideas here, but I don't know. I want a more open area. Minecraft when I'm not pressured to do something is probably one of the most relaxing games I've ever played in my entire life. I don't know how they managed to get it to be the way it is, but I swear they've perfected an art. They really have. And there's a bunch of games that have tried very, very hard to recapture the lightning in the bottle that is Minecraft, and most of them have failed, sadly. Like, back on Xbox, there was that one pseudo Minecraft clone. I think it was called Castle Miner Z. There we go, I got a sapling. I think it was called Castle Miner Z. And it was essentially Minecraft with weird, like, graphics, and you could make guns and such. It was the strangest thing. I should also take some coffee beans, because these are rare too. Oh, hey, there's a big one. I'm shocked. I usually don't spawn in jungles. I either spawn in plain savanna or snow every single time I start a survival world. And spawning in a jungle is crazy, because it normally takes me like a couple hours to find one. Ow. But we have some very rare resources already. Like, I can tell you the number of times I've started a survival world and never ever gotten coffee beans. Like, ever. I've of course traveled out and tried to get jungle trees, because those aren't as rare. They spawn in multiple areas, but the coffee beans, man. How big is this jungle? I do not want to stay here. Food situation is going to be pretty difficult at first. But we'll make do. We'll make do. I always make do. I may die a couple times, but I'm gonna try to at least play Minecraft properly instead of making a bunch of suicide plays constantly. That's not... I'm not, like, brash and aggressive when it comes to Minecraft, like you might think from my 50-minute stream. I'm very passive, like, extremely passive. That's better. Is that a swamp? No, that's more jungle. How big is this junk? Oh, there we go. That breaks it up. But this is actually a really nice area. I unlocked a boat recipe. Oh, right, because my feet touched water for the first time. This is better, yeah. So we have a bunch of jungle. That's interesting. The jungle at, like, this half blends into what I'm assuming is, like, a rolling hills, and there's a village over there. Wow, so we get some resources really early. Appreciated. I definitely need to place plonk a bed down. But yeah, I like mentioned in offhand, but I forgot to really talk about it. I have added a shader and a texture pack, and it looks nice. if you're wondering what the shader is, it's Solder's Enhanced Default, which just adds that little extra, you know, not quite RTXing, but you get the idea. It adds shadows, it makes things look nice, it prevents Minecraft from being a stock standard square game, and it makes the sun actually, you know, do sun things. That plus Optifine. So I have the hand light and everything, so if I go caving and I forget to bring multiple torches, I can bring a couple and just say, screw it. I'm gonna definitely keep this village here because this is really close. And I'll eventually figure out what I want to do with it. That I always try, because I never used to. I always got everything myself, but over the past like couple of years, I have learned from, that's weird. I've learned from other people that it's always a good idea to get a bunch of villagers and make a cat. I'll get a cat too, don't worry about that. I've always learned that it's a good idea to get a bunch of villagers and make a proper villager breeder so that you can have, you know, multiple villagers. Oh, did I not grab? I didn't grab an oak sapling. Hold on. I'm also already starving. Oh, and to really lock this in, yeah, we're gonna permanently stay on hard. I can deal. But yeah, villager breeders are actually very important. I was the dummy who thought that, you know, going mining and getting all of your diamonds for diamond tools and armor was the best way to go about things, but it really is not. Trust me, it really is not. You just get a bunch of villagers and eventually get them to get you diamond tools and armor for emeralds. Honestly, I might want to start building off the edge here. Like, this is a really nice river and surrounded by quite a bunch of cool things. It's a really nice spot, actually. To be fair, any spot can be a really nice spot. But I think I'll set up... What is that? Is that a cave? Nope, just some water. I think I'll set up here. I honestly have no idea whether or not I'm going to die a bunch, because sometimes I get really lucky and I, you know, pay attention to my surroundings. But Minecraft's one of those games where I get jump scared a bunch. All right, let's make a ton of bread. I stole all of these villagers' bread. Oh, I can make cookies. Right. Right. First things first. Let's plonk down the jungle sapling. I don't really need to worry about the jungle saplings because this village is so close. Yeah, let's put this down here. And the oak I don't need to worry about either too much. Okay. I have food proper. First step is always the hardest. And let's see. Jungle logs are... Yeah, it's like a sort of a reddish wood. I don't know. I could also get some savanna if I want. I'm gonna grab some wood types and compare, because I always try to make like a somewhat decent looking house for my first house and then expand as I go. Again, I'm very much a builder. I like building. I'm not a quite the architect type. I wish I was. If I hadn't picked engineering as my major in college, I probably would have gone with something along those lines, because design is cool. I like the idea of design, and so does my dad. My dad actually wanted to be an architect before he joined the military. I don't know if I told that story. My dad at one point in his life was very much a creative person, and still is, just in different avenues now. But he had a very troubled upbringing. So what ended up happening was he wanted more than anything to get out of his house, because it was just a bad situation. So he decided when, it was a bad situation not only because he was struggling with dealing with everything. I'm not going to get into that, obviously, because that's more of a personal story. But it was a kind of a crappy situation, and it was affecting his education. So what he ended up doing was he ended up enlisting in the military. I think it was self-driven, but it might have been recommended. But he ended up enlisting in the Air Force. So that was his MO for a while. If he had had a better time with his education, I think he would have ended up being an architect. Not sure what. I don't think he ever told me what kind of architect, like building design or something like that. But that was the goal. Was he wanted to do something architectural, which, you know, I can respect because that's its own form of art, and buildings are cool in that aspect. Yeah, those villagers. Oh yeah, I should probably use one of their houses and become a freeloader for a second so that I can avoid the nighttime. Just briefly here. I also have not looted these people's houses at all. I will do that soon. Trust me. You people have probably carried your back, carried your lives on your back this whole time, but I'm going to thieve from you. Just give me a little bit. Anyway, yeah, that's essentially the idea. Was he wanted to become an architect, and it was a very, very good dream, and he still thinks about what that would have been like. But the way his life went after he enlisted in the military, he says he wouldn't change a thing. He definitely has some regrets. I think all of us have regrets. But the way that things went after the fact, he probably wouldn't change it because he wouldn't be where he is now. And while my dad isn't exactly the most successful person in the world, he's content. And I think that's the important part, is being content. Okay, so I wanted to start building a house, right? So, oh yeah, I should steal a bed so that I have one. This is the bed I slept in. These houses are weird. This is I'm guessing a savannah village. These houses are weird. I think they're made out of terracotta, right? Yeah. That one is entirely made of savannah wood. Which, man, he's rich if he can cut down that many trees. Not immediately turn them into planks. But I have an idea for a house, at least in this quadrant here. Since we're sort of on the edge of a river leading out into an ocean, I thought it would be prudent to make a, I don't know, sort of like a, not a beach house per se, but definitely like a lake house. I have an idea. Let's see if I can plan it out somewhat. I need to make stairs first. But before I do that, let me compare wood types. Because I want this to be semi-decent. Oh, yeah, I can also grab birch. Hold on. Before I do anything, let me plonk this bed down. Set my spawn. Let me grab this birch. As you can see, when it comes to Minecraft, I'm much slower than most. I just like thinking and planning out before I execute on anything. It's helpful that way. When I'm dragged into stuff, when I play Minecraft, like, hey, let's go fight the Wither, or hey, let's go kill the Ender Dragon, or hey, you want to visit an end city? I always have to prep beforehand, always. I never just drop everything and go. And if I'm in the middle of a project, I want to finish the project, and I hate not finishing. All right, let's make some birch logs. This is just so I can get an idea of how everything's gonna look. I should have grabbed a jungle log. What's up there? Is that more? Oh yeah. Wow, you can see the biome blend in action. That savanna tree has much greener leaves on one side and much, I would say, browner leaves on the other side. I guess this is all savanna here. Is that an ocelot or a cat? I think it's a cat. Look at these houses. You know, I'll give Mojang some credit here. They're very good at structure design, procedurally generated structure design. And designing all of these villages to be procedurally generated and they're all slightly different probably was a hard thing to do. Is that a small tree? No, it's a big tree. This is a small tree. Yeah, let's cut this down quick. I feel like I should get the house to match the aesthetic of where I am, at least a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like it really doesn't matter. You can build a castle in a desert if you really wanted to. That's why Minecraft is probably one of the most what's the word? Freedom-inducing? I don't know how you describe it. Freeing. That would probably be better. Freeing. Minecraft's probably one of the most freeing games you could ever play because there's a million things that you could do, and sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. Oh, almost stepped on the farm. Almost stepped on their farm. Okay. So we have acacia. I forgot jungle, which was on the other side here. I think that's a jungle tree. I hope that's a jungle tree and not a swamped oak. The hardest tree is going to be mangrove, because I use that for design aesthetics all the time because, you know, despite all appearances, my favorite color is actually red. There's a jungle tree. So adding a red wood type to builds to create some contrast is always part of my ideas. But sometimes it takes me forever to find a swamp. They used to be so common, and then when they added the mangrove stuff, they're just not common anymore. It's just part of the general look out and go out and find stuff. That's what half of this game is anyway. You'd think it'd be mining and crafting, but no, it's mining, crafting, and searching. Is that another jungle tree? Yes, it is. Wow. This is a very strange mix of biomes. I like it. Normally I have plains that run forever and then obviously snow and such, but having jungle on one side, what looks like hills on this side, savanna over there, and I'm guessing like a little bit of birch forest. Pretty good area. A lot of variety. Okay. Oh, did I have... Wow, I had exactly enough for a stack. Oops, did not realize. I'm gonna cut down that oak tree there so I can get the logs. And then we can decide what wood I want to use for the main house. Actually, now that I think about it, I might want to do a cobblestone base or something. I don't know. I'll see as I go. It's all design cues. All right. Did I grab birch? Oh, yeah, of course I did. Wow, I can barely pay attention. Okay. So we have birch, acacia, jungle, oak. Whoa! There we go. Don't know what that was about. Probably something to do with the way the game's loading. And then let's put the logs on top. Why did that place sideways? Minecraft's placements are always obnoxious. There we go. Oh, no, that's just the wood that looks sideways. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have birch, acacia, jungle, and oak. I usually go with birch and oak because those two work really well together. I do wish I had dark oak, but I can do without. I could go that way and see if there is any. It's not really important right now. This is the first house. Birch is always great because it adds a huge amount of contrast. And then we could do like birch and acacia maybe. That might look pretty good. I don't know. Oak and jungle are pretty blasé, so let's try with birch and birch and acacia and see how that works. Might create too much of a contrast, but I don't know. Again, it's all planning as I go. All right, so there are a bunch of savanna trees, or not savanna, a bunch of acacia trees around here. Oh, I should make a chest. I think that would be a good idea, eh? Here we go. Throw this in the corner over here. And then let's turn jungle into wood and the oak into planks. Throw all this in here, because that is actually useful for wood later. And I'm gonna use these as construction material. Still got food on me. All right. Now we get to cut down tree. Oh, wait, actually, before I go too far, let me make a wooden pickaxe. Grab some stone and make a stone axe so I can properly cut down trees. I don't want to destroy this area too much, though. Maybe there's somewhere with exposed stone that I can just grab really quickly. Hello, villagers. It's nice that villagers are docile. They provide so much... Oh, hey, that looks like something. Yeah, I think that's clay. It is clay. I can make a brick house. I would need dripstone for that, I think, though, because you have to make mud. Because clay is a non-renewable resource. But you have to make mud and then use that to make clay. Hey, there's stone. I just need 3. Let's hope I don't drown. Oh man, I got the Stone Age achievement. Wait, hold on. I swear. The player character in Minecraft, regardless of who it is, Steve, Alex, or all the new ones, they have terrible lung capacity. It's actually shameful. Then again, the time of day is what? 23 minutes? Something like that? So, in essence, their lung capacity is about, when compared to the length of the day, is actually shockingly high. But for us, you know, the people playing the game, it sucks. It's terrible. Get better lungs. Get better lungs. I don't know if I mentioned, I'm not big on the whole Zodiac thing. I know that a lot of people are big on Zodiac thing. If you're wondering where this is going, it'll become clear in a second. But I know what sign I am. I'm pretty sure it's Gemini, which kind of makes sense in a way. But you know how with horoscopes and zodiac signs and even the MBTI personality thing, like, you know how they try so hard to explain exactly who you are, and a lot of people believe it word for word. I noticed that they're very vague a lot of the times. 9 times out of 10, when you read a Zodiac article, like explaining your horoscope for the day, or like what you are, what you want to be, things like that, it's all generally encouraging and can hit a lot of important points for sure. Not saying that it doesn't, but if you apply that to anybody, you'll line up at least a couple things. I think it's called confirmation bias, where you read something and you realize that there are certain parts of it that make more sense than others, and you sort of ignore all the things that don't line up. Yeah, confirmation bias, 110%, that's what it is. And my mom's not super into Zodiac stuff, but she follows the mantra at least somewhat. But at the same time, like, she's aware of the fact that it doesn't really make a ton of sense. She's also a numbers person. Like, if she sees 11:11 on the clock, that's super important. If she sees her own birthday on the clock, that's super important, stuff like that. But again, there are lines to be drawn with that sort of thing. I'm personally of the idea that our personalities are self-driven. Obviously, there's the exposure effect where you can intermingle with certain people and your personality is shaped by who you've grown up with, especially your family. But I do believe that a lot of our personality is our own, and there's no, like, guiding force to determine who we are and how we act. It's our own choices. So in a way, while, like, zodiacs and personality traits and all these things are extremely helpful for getting a better understanding and saying, oh, I'm not this, this, and this, I'm this, this, and this, I think that can be kind of misleading. And it's better to just focus on, like, who you are rather than what someone tells you that you are. At least that's how I feel about that. But to get back to the water thing, every single zodiac sign has an element tied to it, like fire, water, earth, and air, I believe. And those are semi-descriptive of personality types, like, and also how you are in relation to that specific element type. But again, it feels somewhat disingenuous. I use that word a lot, disingenuous. If it means what I think it means, it essentially is something that feels fake, to put it in more layman's terms. Or something that feels like it's pulling at details that really shouldn't be. So, you know. All right, so let me actually start building the darn lake house and stop rambling a little bit. So I want stairs going up. I could do acacia stairs. Do I want the acacia floor and birch walls? Yeah, actually, I think I do. Let's try that. Let's try acacia stair and birch walls. The hardest part is always setting things up and getting an idea. I don't want this to go too high, because I'll eventually have to build, what are they called? Support beams into the lake. I want this to actually be a bit straighter. Hold on. See, all these little details. That's, I think, the most aggravating part about building in Minecraft is you want things to look a certain way, and sometimes they just don't. Yeah, so let's do this. I'm gonna grab some slabs here. Hey, look, the acacia tree grew right in front of my eyes. Imagine if trees in real life were like that. That'd honestly be kind of hilarious. Yeah, that's better. It's not perfect, but I'm not perfect. It gets the idea across of it being a bit longer. I'll shape it. I could honestly, now that I think about it, I could probably do just slabs. I feel like that would be better. I'll keep the stairs. But if I could probably do, yeah, I could probably do just slabs. Let's see how that looks. I wish there were, like, singular, like, quarter blocks. That would be really dumb, but that would help immensely with certain builds. All right, let's see how that looks. Looks better. If I could add... No, I think that's what we're gonna go with for now. The issue is I could take this out and have it be just a gap there, but it looks like it's not connected, and I hate that look, so I'd rather have it be filled in more. Let's add Oops. Let's add a thing there. Oh, I have all the acacia wood on me. Let's plan out the base of this whole thing. Oh, wait, I'm one up from where I should be. Ah! Oh, I need another... Hold on. Need another slab. There we go. Bop. And then throw some slabs on there. Not slabs. Planks. There we go. Make sure that that connects up. Yep, cool. Okay. So now I'm going to try to plan out the shape at least a little bit. The idea I have for this is I want it to be a bit longer. So if I count out, let's say 13 on this side, 13 on the other, add them together, that's 27. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Same thing on this side. Oops. While I'm building this, I might as well talk about what I posted on Twitter a couple hours back. I haven't watched a proper episode of anime in like 3 years. I'm not kidding you on that. It has been actually like 3 years. It just fell out of favor with me, and I hated the amount of time that I wasted. When I was like sitting down and letting my mind dissolve slowly. Oh, oops. Oh yeah, that's right. I probably want to stare there. But I decided, on a whim, because it was recommended to me in a bunch of clips, to properly watch Hitsuki no Taika. So I decided to watch Taika, and honestly, because I watched both seasons and the OVA all in one sitting, which was yes, I'm an opening skipper, so I skipped the opening for the stuff, but the second season had a really good one, so I hesitated, but I still skipped it anyway, just to save time. I'm a busy person. I had one opportunity to like take some time and take a break, and don't have a lot of school stuff to do right now, so I had the time. But if you have not seen Hitsuki no Taika, essentially what it is it's like a combination of sci-fi and high fantasy, where it's all a bunch of essentially the world is a high fantasy world, but everything technology that we have is of a similar style there. Like, instead of guns, they have gundos, they have vehicles, all that stuff, but it's all powered by magic instead of by, mechanics and things. And there is a young sorceress named Chaika who meets with this saboteur named Toru Akira. And at first, he's very dismissive of her because general protagonist syndrome, but they develop into really close friends after a while. And the entire venture is she's trying to collect her father's remains to give him a funeral. And that would be a nice premise for a show and all, but there's not much draw to that. You'd think, oh, cliche general show, I've seen this a million times. And yeah, it's cliched. There's a bunch of elements to it that are just kind of like you could write that better. But the main draw of the whole show is Chaika herself, Chaika Travant. She is a 14-year-old girl with severe amnesia. So she has barely any knowledge of anything other than the fact that she's trying to collect her father's remains to give him a funeral. But they went with the genuinely curious, innocent type. And I swear, single thing that she does is the most adorable thing in the world. I don't know how they managed it. She's so cute, dude. Just the facial expressions were a huge meme back when the show came out in 2014. And I had seen it back then. And I had seen clips of it back then because it was airing at the time. But I was like, I'll get to it later. It's on the list. And I never really thought about it, but I got recommended it the other day, and I was like, maybe I should give it a shot. And I'm glad I did, because it was actually surprisingly engaging. It's not just Chaika being cute, because you could do that with every show and say, oh, the show's bad, but at least the girl's cute. No, there was some genuinely fun stuff that happened in it. Like the magic language actually sounds somewhat decent. It's not like random gibberish thrown together, but they do their classic, I'm going to yell out the name of the attack. So there was that. But all in all, it was surprisingly engaging for how straightforward it was. It's rare that a show can be that straightforward and still keep you engaged. Though there was one part later on. This is probably gonna be. This might be spoilers, so if you don't want to hear it, tune out. But at the end of the first season, they have to infiltrate a fortress, which has been like actively going against the League of Six Nations. You know, being generally belligerent and all that. And they infiltrate it. And everything goes wrong. Everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And I don't mind conflict. I really don't. I can get with it. I think that it improves character development and such. But in the situation that they ended up in, where everything just kind of went upwards and did not go the right way, and they got caught with their pants down, so to speak. One of the characters gets hypnotized, like in Dragon Ball, that one movie where Piccolo gets hypnotized into fighting Goku. It's exactly that. And I had developed some attachment to the characters because, you know, they're interesting, and I like following their stories, and I like when they have fun and interact with each other and do cool stuff. But I hate beyond hate when I become attached to a character and then they switch sides out not of their own free will. I hate that. I do not like hypnotism. I do not like the idea of hypnotism. It sucks. It sucks so bad. And there's a bunch of times when people use magic in that show to hypnotize. And it's like, dude, stop. I get that it works, and I get that, like, it's to move forward your stupidly sadistic scheme or whatever. But, like, could you not? Could you just fight them? It has to do with espionage and sabotage and all that, and turning, like, the strongest, one of the strongest members from the enemy side to your side is always a strategic advantage, whether willingly or forcefully. But, like, no, stop. Keep them sane. And the worst part is, the character who gets hypnotized says after, like, she breaks the hypnosis, she was fully aware the whole time. So, like, so that's, like, I have no mouth and I must scream levels of, oh god. Yeah, it's spooky. Not a fun time. Definitely not a fun time. But other than that, like, the rest of the show was really good. There were a couple episodes that were definitely filler, and you could tell that they were filler. Which in a single season, no, that was a librarian, I think. In a 2-season show where one season has 12 episodes and the other has 10, having filler kind of doesn't seem right, but it's character development. That's the excuse that you can use all the time for that. Oh, that sort of stuff is character development. And sometimes it works. I think in Chaika it's okay, because it's still the same characters and they're still having the same interactions in the filler episode. So we get to see more of, like, how they act. Which, you know, is fine. I'm gonna tear one of these villagers' house down. Nah, you know, I'm gonna be nice. But that's the thing with filler. If it's done right, then it promotes character development and allows characters to interact in ways that they normally wouldn't when there's, plot and they have to focus. But other times it is 100% there to just take up space. And yes, animation is a business. And properly getting one episode out per week when you're not like pre-planning or churning out a bunch of different shows all at the same time, yeah, it can kind of suck. Especially if time gated and you're on a time limit. It's a problem. But at the same time, like, you can write an entire show from start to finish and have it be entertaining throughout without the use of filler. And some studios get it right, some studios get it wrong. Honestly, if it stems from like a light novel or something, because I think Chaika was a light novel, you can get away with filler if it ties directly to the source material, because books inherently have filler. You can't use 100,000 words and tell something important with all 100,000. There has to be something in there that breaks the consistency, and it's just part of storytelling. So in that way, I actually probably want to keep this now that I think about it. In that way, it adds to a story, it doesn't subtract. But case in point, a show that abuses filler way too much and gets a ton of flack for it was Naruto. And honestly, with the number of episodes that it had, yeah, I can see why they really couldn't work with much else at times. But, like, come on, man. Dragon Ball did it too. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. There it's slightly, and I say slightly with huge quotations, more justified. Because at least the filler episodes, they're doing something. But at the same time, Dragon Ball falls victim to the I'm going to power up my abilities for 8 minutes straight. So they really don't get away with it either. It's all a balancing act with storytelling. There's always a method to the madness. And for people who can tell very concise stories without adding non-important or non-essential information, that's commendable, because that tells us they have good writing chops. Though there are stories that even with filler couldn't be salvaged. I'm sure by me saying that, a couple anime probably popped into someone's head, and you go, "Oh, right, that one." I won't name names, but there's definitely some stinkers. There's been some stinkers over the years. I've watched a couple stinkers. Sometimes they get that so bad it's good energy, but then sometimes it's like, oh man, another one of this show? On the topic of another one of this show, one of my least favorite genres, and I hate to be this person, but one of my least favorite genres has gotta be isekai. Purely for the fact that it's like beating a dead horse now. It's been done to death. And everybody has like that level of, oh, it's just the purest form of escapism. Yes, it is the purest form of escapism. But you don't have to constantly say, oh, this person died and is reincarnated as this thing. There's some really good isekai shows, don't get me wrong, when they kind of ignore the half of it that is the isekai, and they just focus on the high fantasy. But for the stuff that's like clearly takes inspiration from Sword Art Online, for instance, there's so much more that can be done with that than just person dies, person is resurrected in game or in world or something like that. For a couple examples of genuinely good isekai, at least in my opinion, one is probably Overlord, because it just gives up on the whole resurrected another world thing and just goes full on high fantasy. This guy is trying to be like the most powerful being in the world. And that's fine, because the characters in that are actually well written to an extent. And another one that works really well is, I think, Reincarnated as a Slime, because that one's decent as well, and the characters are really decent there. I think that's the main selling point of the isekai, is if you have decent characters and can tell a good story. I might actually make this the cave. If you have decent characters and can tell a good story, I can forgive the fact that it's an isekai. But if you're just like, oh, a person was put into fantasy world and is now superpowered and can do whatever he wants. Boring? Boring. That's boring. It's really boring. You have to be interesting as well as do the isekai thing. And it wouldn't be bad, trust me, it wouldn't be bad if it wasn't so oversaturated. I personally think that's the issue. Like, I mentioned multiple times, you can tell a good story with a cliche premise. But it's hard to really stand out with your story when you're just using the same story beats over and over. Like, if you're gonna tell a story set in high fantasy, do it in high fantasy. Don't say, oh, this person was originally like a salaryman, and is now in a high fantasy world. Like, it's not necessary. You can just tell the high fantasy story. Case in point, Chaika. Itsuki no Chaika is a fantasy story, and it has no isekai elements. It's just fantasy. Every character in that world is in that world. There's no resurrection bullshit. There's no reincarnation bullshit. It's just every character is self-contained in the universe. And if you can write a story with a subject matter and like keep it within that subject matter without throwing in this isekai stuff, you can still tell a good story. It doesn't have to. I think part of it's marketing as well. It sucks that it comes down to that, but it tends to be marketing most of the time. There are people who are desperate for isekai, and I get the appeal. I get the escapism appeal. But like I've said, you could tell a good story about characters set in a world without requiring one of them to be dead and reincarnated. When it's played for comedy, it works really well. Like, two I can think of that are played pretty well when it comes to isekais being satires of themselves. One is definitely Konosuba, which everyone knows at this point and is hilarious and is getting a season 3, which hooray. And another is, I'd say, Cautious Hero. I think that's another one that plays the satire angle really well. It gets serious by the end, but it keeps up with where we know this is an isekai, and we know this is also high fantasy, and we don't care. Let's just make everything crazy. And it works. They do it right. Sometimes it's weird, though, how shows like Cautious Hero start out with that comedy satire angle and end up waltzing into, like, semi-serious. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it doesn't work that well. It depends on who wrote it. But again, isekai isn't the only genre that exists. I know a lot of people like to think it is, but it is not. Let's buy some cocoa beans. But yeah, I'm glad I watched Chaika, because I'd put it off for years, and I knew that Chaika was a huge meme with her meme faces. And it's you know, for how indistinct a lot of anime characters are nowadays, it amazed me how well she stands out with the big bushy black eyebrows. I was actually kind of shocked at how different she looks from everything. Actually, the whole art style that they used for the Chaika anime, like every character has distinct designs. Except, well, the guys tend to not. Like, a lot of the quote-unquote more generic guys, like Nikolai, who's part of Gillette's squad, and David, who's part of Red Chaika's squad. They seem a bit more stock standard big dude. But for the main characters and a lot of the supporting cast, they're very distinct. They are very distinct in their designs. With just little things, too. Like, Toru's bangs on the front of his face are created in the shape of an X. And just that allows him to stand out. Like, the blue hair, green eyes thing, that's fine and all. But a million characters have blue hair, green eyes, or just blue hair. Having that cross on the front of his head with his messy cut adds to his character design in a very unique way. And his sister Akari, she has green hair with the proper like hair vents and the ponytail and all that. But while her face and her hair isn't the most distinct, her outfit is super distinct. Like, that's I think part of it too, is when they design the outfits of all the characters that have a certain aesthetic to them, and they're all very well designed, and they're all different. That's huge. It's not just a bunch of people dressed the same. I hate to bring up Sword Art Online again, but it does justice to that too. Like, the design of outfits in all the different games are really well done, to where you know like what the characters look like. If you took away the character's face and just had their outfit, for Sword Art Online, you could tell who's who. If you had seen the show, you could tell who's who. And that's important too with a lot of shows. I think that's why Chaika is somewhat underrated. At least that's what I personally think. Not saying that not a lot of people watched it. I'm sure a lot of people did. But it didn't have, other than Chaika herself and other than the media buzz surrounding her meme status, it didn't stand out as aggressively as it could have. Probably due to the general timing of like when the show aired and all that sort of stuff. But it was distinct enough to grace the internet for a period of time and say, hey, we have this character who looks unique and has a bunch of meme faces. And everyone's like, yay! And then everything passed on because trends are short. Case in point, the current two like big talking points with people, because they're still both airing, I believe, is Spy Family and Chainsaw Man. And Chainsaw Man, more can be said about that than I could even say. But Chainsaw Man is 100% like super, super popular right now, and has been since the manga released and like got some serious traction. And honestly, fair. It tells a really good story and there's really good characters. But at the same time, Spy Family came out as well, and everyone was like, this show is great. This show is adorable. I like the slice of lifeness of it, and the idea is fun. But at the same time, you know that a lot of people tuned into Spy Family because of Anya. Anya and her meme faces. You can guarantee a show will get popular if you have a character that has meme faces. It's 100% going to happen. There's no way of escaping it. So maybe that too is its own like level of marketing. But sometimes, I don't know. The internet is very fickle like that. They pick up things and drop things just as quickly. But as long as certain aspects of certain shows are present in the meme space, they'll stick around. They will. One show that definitely never, ever is probably going to die as long as it keeps airing is JoJo. JoJo has been airing as an anime since 2012. Yes, it's been that long. And it's still going strong. I think part 6 just finished not a month or so ago. I might be slightly off on that. Oh, maybe it was last month. Anyway, yeah. Whoa, why the hell? Brazov, why are you sleeping in my bed? Anyway, that will never leave the meme sphere because everything from parts 1 all the way now to part 6, everything is like a huge part of modern day internet culture. And it's shocking. It really is. It's shocking how much of JoJo has just instilled itself into people's brains. That's the whole joke of, is that a JoJo reference? And most of the time, no, it really is not. But we've dug ourselves this hole, so now we're sort of here. My personal opinion on JoJo is I think it's good. I like it. There's a bit of weirdness, I'd say, that is sometimes difficult to get past. I was a huge fan of JoJo a while back, but now not as much, because, you know, I've sort of pulled away from the whole anime thing in general. I'm not knowledgeable about it, as you can tell by the way that I'm talking about certain shows, like I know what I'm talking about. But at one point I was a big fan, and I still think it's good. I haven't played any of the JoJo games, like Eyes of Heaven or anything like that, or All-Star Battle, and I kind of want to, because they seem like fun. I've seen other people play them. But the shows wise, I definitely skipped out on part 6. I did not watch part 6. Again, purely because of the not watching much shows recently thing. But at the same time, I don't know. I was like I said, I was really involved in JoJo content a while back, and I had seen at least pieces of each of the parts in like reviews from different people on YouTube and such, and like character breakdowns and things. So I knew what part 6 had to offer. I knew what was in part 6. And I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was for me, so I never really latched onto it. When part 6 was announced, I was already out of the binge watch phase, where I just don't do it as much anymore. Like sitting down and watching Chaika was a huge break from my normal habits when it comes to anime stuff. I haven't done that in a long time. Honestly, if I checked, because I used to keep on my anime list to keep track of what I had seen and what I hadn't seen, so that I didn't rewatch stuff. And if I had dated everything, there would definitely be a huge gap between when I had just watched Chaika and the last thing I watched. 110%, there would have been a huge gap. Sadly, there's a lot of shows that I definitely should see, but I have not seen. And in a sense, I want to watch them at some point, but my backlog is so crazily long that, like, I can't, dude. I cannot. It's like digging through a haystack to find the one needle at the end. Like, I can't do all that in a reasonable amount of time. Because when I get involved in a show or a series, I don't stop watching the show or series until I'm done with it. If it's over the course of like 2 or 3 days, I will spend a work day watching the show. I will get so hyper fixated on what I'm watching that, like, I forget everything else. I really do. So I know what my limits are, and I know how to not sit down and binge as frequently as I did. Or at least, that's my hope, anyway. If I knew that I was going to sit down and watch Chaika all in one sitting, I might have planned it out better. But honestly, who cares? It's anime, that's kind of the point. And Chaika has been out for 8 years now, so you're not missing out on much. I'm not missing out on much if I watch it all in one sitting. I hate suspense. Did I ever mention that? I hate suspense. I hate cliffhangers. I think they're so dumb. I know that it's to entice you to watch the next episode, but they're so dumb. I watched Konosuba Season 2 when it was coming out, And it was fine. There really aren't many cliffhangers in Konosuba, but having to wait a full week to watch an episode takes the life out of me. Because I'm a binge watcher, and I like having the continuity of an open and shut case, like I'm reading a book. So having to wait was just like, man, come on. When can the next week be over? And I'm sure people deal with that all the time. I'm definitely not alone. That's like a normal thing when it comes to any sort of serialized show, be it on Netflix, Crunchyroll, or anything. Hulu, I don't know. I don't do streaming services. The nice thing, like the majority of the content that I personally consume is YouTube content. As I mentioned a couple times, that's where I started like properly existing, was when I started watching YouTube videos back when I was very young. And that's sort of where my hub of content has been for a very long time. I witnessed the purchase of YouTube by Google. I witnessed the algorithm changes in 2012. I've seen it all. I really have. I'm no stranger to the way that YouTube works. I've been there a long time. But the nice thing about YouTube is, with content creators that you follow, you can see how often they actually make content. And some people are daily, some people are weekly, some people do it once every couple of months. And it's all about picking and choosing. I have updates on YouTube because I'm subscribed to, like, I don't subscribe to that many channels. I don't like having a ton of stuff bombard my notifications. I'm subscribed to probably around 90 to 100 channels with notifications turned on. And I get maybe 3 or 4 video updates within a 6-hour period, roughly. Sometimes, depending on whether or not it's a lull in the week, maybe 3 or 4 per day. But usually there's always something to watch. There's always something new. And then there's of course, as I mentioned, channels that update very infrequently, but every time they do, it's like a diamond in the rough when their content is fully released. Just to name a couple, and I know some of them live stream. For instance, Pyrocynical. Pyrocynical does live streams all the time, but I mainly pay attention to his YouTube content with his video essays on video games. I think those are really entertaining. But other than that, like Melody Sheep, who does science and space videos with fantastic sound design. If you have not watched Melody Sheep, go watch Melody Sheep. It's really awesome. And another one is Historia Civilis, who is a historian and general historiographer who, if you've ever seen the history videos on YouTube with the squares, like the Roman Empire and different wars and people fighting with squares, that's him. That's Historia. And every time Historia uploads, I always watch his videos because it's just a fun, entertaining look into Roman history. And it might not just Roman history, Greek history. There's a wandering trader here. Roman history, Greek history, and various other things, just generally based on history. And I've mentioned before, I'm a history buff, so that's super entertaining. It really is. And it might not be the most accurate stuff in the world, because history is rife with inaccuracies, and it's very difficult to be perfect. But it's a good story, and it's very entertaining. And it's all things that actually probably happened. So, hey, you can look back on, like, what was it, 27 BCE, and say, hey, that's when Octavian, who at the time was actually taking his adopted father's name, Julius Caesar, became Augustus and did his, like, turned the thing into an empire properly, even though it wasn't called an empire at the time. But that's when historians say it started, and yada 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 yada. That's one of my main content sources is history, because it's just interesting. It's just interesting to look back and see all the stuff that we as human beings have done. There's bads, there's goods. It's history. And some people are bored by it, and I get that. Everybody's tastes are different, especially in school. History in school is boring. That's true. 110% agree. History in school is boring. Purely because I think part of it is you're forced to learn it, and being forced to do anything immediately makes it less engaging. But in the case of like history in schools, at least for the United States, we learn some world history, but not enough to be important, which sucks. And we learn a majority of like American history, because yeah, duh. What else are you gonna learn in schools? At least in American schools. And 90% of the time, with American history, it's talking about the Revolutionary War, the American Civil War, the Industrial Revolution, just, you know, important touchstones in American history that are important to where we are now. And it's definitely, I'm not saying it's not important, it's just not entertaining. Because at the same time that you're forced to learn about it, you have to be tested on it. And no one likes being tested on things. For every kid in school that, get out of here. For every kid in school that said that they liked testing, either they were crazy or they were just convincing themselves that testing was cool. Trust me, I was no slouch in school. I think I did pretty well, comparatively. But if anybody asks me, do you like school? No, I do not. I hate it. I cannot wait to be done with college. I'm so close. I have 2 months left, and then I'm done with any, like, general education stuff. I mentioned that I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on in March, and that's because when I finish up with school, because I'm finishing up with school in late February, Japanese school times and all that, I'm going to be switching over to a internship, which is I know nothing about, so I'll get there when I get there. But the idea is I will be moving out of my current living space and into somewhere that I think the company is going to pick for me or something like that. And then I'm in an internship for about 6 months, and I come back to the States, and from there I look for employment. Hooray! But yeah, in March, there's going to be a bit of an upset because I'm going to have to move house. And then in August, there's going to be a bit of an upset because I'm going 4,000 miles away. So we'll see how that goes. I think it'll be fine. I do. But, you know, with travel and all that, things can get crazy at times, and there's more focus put on like, I have to get this done and 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 this done in a, you know, timely fashion. And I still want to do this. I still want to keep streaming because I'm having fun with it. But who knows? Sometimes it's good to take breaks. Even if I am only streaming 4 times a week. Speaking of streaming 4 times a week, how do people stream for every single day? How do people do that? Like, I have to do schoolwork, I have to do like actual work behind the scenes for all the stream stuff. I have busy work, I have to go shopping, I have to pay bills, I have to do all these like human things on top of, you know, live streaming. And how do people stream for 7 days a week? I know that some people are in a different life situation, and, you know, there's not really much avoiding that. But how? 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 I could never. It just seems so overwhelming. Honestly, if you can, props, but take care of yourself. Trust me, I only stream 4 times a week, and I can barely take care of myself. Still don't have a glass of water next to me. just to give you an idea. Oh, what a shame. I really should figure that out. Hang on, how does this look? I just had a thought to change the stairs. No, that looks terrible. Get out of here. But yeah, I definitely need to get in the habit. I did it for the what was it? The Minecraft stream, and I had a glass for the New Year's stream, but I don't have one right now, and I don't know why, because I knew I was going to be talking for 4 hours. That's how long I probably want this to go as well. I might cut it a little bit short depending how much progress I make. But the idea was, thank you for the follow. The idea was 4 hours. Jeez, it scared the life out of me. But yeah, that's sort of in essence how far I want to go today. What am I doing? Right, stairs. Oh, come on. But at one point in time, who knows? Maybe I'll add a like a permanent glass of water, or add it to my like reminders that I make for myself. Like, hey, get a glass of water before you start streaming, bud. So that way I yell at myself to, you know, hydrate. It's tough. It's tough, at least for me, because I'm very scatterbrained, and I put so much focus into being like, okay, why did I do that? I put so much focus into being like, okay, I have a stream. I'm gonna stream. I know exactly what I have to do. Let me get everything prepared for that, and then I forget the little things. But over time, I'll get more in a regimen. I'm still in the growing phases here, so I fully understand that I'm not perfect. I don't think I ever will be perfect. Honestly, who cares about perfection? It's not all it's cracked up to be. At least, that's something I try to tell myself a lot. Purely for the fact that, I mentioned a couple times, I am a perfectionist. I like things to be a certain way. I never like to do things half-assed, half-credit. It just doesn't feel right. Oh, that would be why that looks bad. So, in my eyes, like, being a perfectionist is both a blessing and a curse. I think I said this exact thing last stream, but it's such a core part of my personality to, like, do things to a standard of quality that I myself respect. And even if I do get to that point, like, even if I do get to where it's something that, you know, is properly like a high quality standard, like, I don't know. I'm never satisfied. I'm never, ever satisfied. And I always want something more than what I can do. Thankfully at least for music, I'm starting to get there where my physical skills are starting to catch up to my creative skills. Because I might have mentioned before, I honestly forget what I talk about sometimes, but I have had musical ideas swirling around in my head for probably 5 years, to put it in like the shortest, most succinct way I possibly can. And I've never been able to execute on them. I haven't had the technological prowess. I haven't had the physical dexterity to play the instruments to do it. And I just really haven't had the motivation. I think that's been the killer, is just lack of motivation. But now that I am like properly doing streaming and I'm exercising some creative energy in at least one outlet, it's given me a drive that I never thought I would have. And I want to do something this year. I really do. I have put it off for far too long. I can properly play at least one instrument, and I can cheese a second one if I really need to. I'm not a fantastic singer, but I'll try. I want to do something, and at the end of the day, like, the passion is there. The passion to do something is there. So if I execute on it, that's what I want. But who knows? Potentially at one point in the future, I will have something musical. It's just difficult because you have to be, especially if you're self, what's it called? Self-driven, and you are self-contained. That's the word. If you're self-contained like I am, you have to be a jack of all trades. You have to know how to do each specific thing completely on your own. And while that is definitely 110% like stupid, because I probably could ask people to help me, I'm a bit selfish. I am. I won't admit that I'm not. And I want, at least for creative endeavors, I want to have as much direction as I possibly can with stuff, at least for the time being, to prove to myself that I can do it. That's the main thing with a lot of my creative stuff, is I want to at least prove to myself that I can do it before I ask anybody for assistance. Because if I can't do it myself, then in my eyes, I don't deserve to be creative. It's a very toxic mindset to have, but again, I'm a perfectionist. So that combined with the toxic mindset makes it so that I always want to bring it to a quality that I respect, but at the same time can never act on it because of a lack of faith that I'll do it right. Trust me, getting all this sorted and getting to live streaming and setting up everything has been a battle. But I had that spark of motivation. And I'm glad I did. I really am glad that I got inspired to set this whole thing up and actually start doing this. I say a lot that I have stuff sitting on the back burner, but I have stuff just rotting on the back burner at this point. And I've sat for too long doing nothing other than playing games and, I don't know, like vegetating, for lack of a better word. So I wanna do stuff. And that's what I've set out to do this year. First things first, I have to fix my sleep schedule. It has progressively gotten worse the closer we've gotten to the new year. So that's numero uno. And then once I fix the sleep schedule and I'm on a good regimen, I can dedicate some time to properly working on stuff, instead of random creative bursts of energy. There's nothing wrong with having random creative bursts of energy, but like, I can never control it. I just get super inspired one day to say, all right, I'm gonna do this thing, and then I don't stop until it's done. And then if I come back to it, it's like, oh, I did that? Almost like it wasn't my hands that ended up doing it. Because how could I have done that one thing in that short amount of time? You know? For case in point. I don't bring this up at all. Not because I'm not proud of it, but because it's not relevant. But I made, when I properly debuted back in November, I spent roughly 2 weeks, not 100% of the day, obviously, but I spent roughly 2 weeks working on the lore video that I originally uploaded to the VODs channel and is now uploaded to the main channel. And I really wanted to do that, trust me. And I'm glad I did, because it allowed me to work with the program that I use for a lot of my editing, which is After Effects. and get a good grasp of like how to do stuff in After Effects. But I did it all in the span of 2 weeks. Literally just 2 weeks. And animating, it's very amateur, I'll admit that. But animating an entire 2.5-minute video in 2 weeks is absurd. That's absurd. I obviously didn't do it frame by frame, and I used like an animatic style. But 2.5 minutes, 2.5 full minutes with multiple scene transitions and different, like in 2 weeks. I'm never going to do something that crazy again. Unless I decide to edit a video, and that'll probably take 2 weeks. I do have ideas. I mentioned before, I mentioned during, what was it, the very long 15-minute challenge Minecraft stream, and I don't know if I mentioned during the New Year celebration, but I did split my channels in half to where I have the VODs and the main. And the reason I did that is because I eventually want to like properly do video edits and make more long-form content. I have an idea for a video series that I wanted to do for a while that I might get to eventually. It's not going to be exactly the most different thing in the world, and a couple of people have probably already done it now that I think about it. But I hope nonetheless it's entertaining. And it'll also improve my video editing skills, because I don't know, video editing's fun. It's difficult, but it's fun. Ooh, that's rain. Well, like I said, I'm very self-driven, and I am 100% a jack of all trades, master of none. So I like doing a lot of things, and that can be an Achilles heel, because doing a lot of things sometimes leads to not being able to do much of anything at times. And I've had that mental blockade, for lack of a better term. Oh, I don't want that there. Let's see. It's just difficult at times. Motivation is always difficult. There's always a degree. There's always a degree of acting on something that requires motivation, and motivation often comes in bursts. It's never consistent. And I wish it was, and I'm sure there are ways to make it more consistent. But it's just it creates problems. It does. Eventually I'll break out of that shell, and I really want to. But enough sappy stuff. I'm not super enthused with this aesthetic, but I feel like if I build it more, it'll look better. Again, when I build in Minecraft, I do everything completely off the cuff. I don't plan stuff out. So it's just what's in my head. Can I put down in blocks? Yes. And then I get what I get. That looks actually okay. Let's build up a wall of 3 so I can see. But yeah, I want Minecraft to be semi-regular because right now I'm in the mood for it. So I'll probably be streaming it on Mondays. I would love to call it Minecraft Mondays, but that's so tacky. That's so tacky. Oh, great, it's rain. Yeah, it's raining. Have I mentioned... I haven't mentioned weather in a while. Like, actual IRL weather. If it isn't clear, and I mentioned it quite a lot, I live in Japan, as of right now. And I had seen before I got here that, like, living in Japan, a majority of the time, you want to bring an umbrella with you places. because it's going to rain, and if it doesn't rain, it snows. And the wettest season for Japan is December. If it doesn't rain, it's going to snow every day, regardless. If you're not caught in the rain, you're going to be caught in the snow, and if you're not caught in the snow, it will rain in less than 5 minutes. And it's not horrible, because rain's fine, but it's cold at the same time. So if I looked at a weather map of my local area and I looked at like when it would clear up and when we would have proper weather, the answer to that is not until like February. So it's just gonna keep raining and keep raining and keep raining and keep raining. And I honestly have no problem with rain. I really don't. Rain is very relaxing. It's very calming. When I was younger, like in my teenage years, I used to take an umbrella, and I used to just walk out into my backyard and just sit and enjoy the rain. Because it is super relaxing. It really is. But it sucks when you have to do something. That's the one aspect of rain that I cannot stand. The moment you have to actually go out and do something in the rain, oh, it becomes the worst thing to ever exist. That is second only to snow. Second only to snow. I will never forget when I had to go shopping and I didn't check the weather, and it was snowing with high winds, and it was like I was going through the opening of Dead Space 3. If you've never played Dead Space 3, at the very start of it, they're on a snow planet called Tal Volantis, and you're essentially like walking through a blizzard. You are walking through what looks like a mass of snow swirling around at high velocity, and you cannot see. And the main character who you're playing as holds his hand up, and like it's almost impossible to walk because of how much snow there was. That is clearly an over-exaggeration of when I went out shopping when it was snowing, because it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't a full blizzard, but I was underprepared. And the supermarket that I go to is like 20 minutes away. So I had to spend 20 minutes walking through snow, and then 20 minutes walking back through the same snow. And I tell you, I've worn a bunch of different boots in my life for weather conditions, because I'm from the East Coast of the US, and I'm from the Northeast, to wire you in a little bit better. So we have our fair share of the seasons. Get out of this bed, bro. We have our fair share of the seasons. I'm no stranger to snow. But man, I swear, the shoes that I have now are non-slip, high traction. But the snow here is so slippery. I actually have come back from like either going to class or going to the I have a 7-Eleven that's like 5 minutes from my house. But I've come back from just that small walk, and I've slipped on the snow multiple times. Multiple times. And every single time I slip on the snow, I feel like my back's gonna be thrown out. So I've come home with cramps from the amount of snow on the ground, and it sucks. I hate it. It's funny how that works, huh? Rain is probably my favorite weather condition if it's not a clear sky day. But snow is by and large my least favorite. How's this looking so far? It's looking pretty generic, but I'll add some details as I go. But yeah, snow is 100% my least favorite. I hate snow. I actually had a discussion with my mom a little bit ago. And because we don't know where the internship's gonna put me. So we were talking about that, and she was like, would you prefer an area where there's no snow? And me, being the stubborn person I am, instead of saying yes because I hate it and it sucks to walk through, I said I've been used to snow all my life, so being in an area without snow would be weird. And that isn't me just kind of deflecting and saying I want to stay the same. It would be very odd for there to not be snow, at least for me. It's weird how that's how my thought process goes, but that's how my thought process goes. It would be weirder for me to not have snow than it would to not suffer through it. Really. So, yeah. Snow when it's not, like, snowing is fine. If it's just snow on the ground, I can deal. If it's like, it just, again, it depends on if I have to go do something. If I have to go do something, screw off, stop snowing. But if I don't have to do anything, like, I can go out and make snowballs and throw them, but it's not fun. Story time. So, I mentioned before how I don't eat properly, and I still don't. And I have, at least medically, low blood pressure. I have naturally low blood pressure. If I could tell you the numbers, I would. But I don't get high blood pressure. I don't get blood pressure spikes. And I very, very naturally am just weirdly, like, I'm a very energetic person, at least via my voice, but physically I'm very relaxed. I'm very sedentary. And at one point I was asked, because I hadn't done it for a while. Every time winter comes around, my dad has to go out and shovel snow in our front yard because he needs to clear out the snow so that we can, drive out of the driveway. And the city is no help because they don't come to our neighborhood to dig anything out, so we have to do it ourselves. And my dad always does it. He's getting older now, so it's starting to hurt him, and he has a physical job, so that's hurting him too. And one time, I remember we had a discussion like, you need to get out and you need to help me with this. Because I'm tired of you sitting and not doing anything and me going out and doing it myself. My dad's as stubborn as me. So, like, even if he says that, he'll still go out and do it and get mad. Even though I say, yeah, I'll help you, just wake me up or just let me know. So he asked me to help him shovel. And I was planning on going out and shoveling. It snowed really hard one day, and he got up early because he has a very good circadian rhythm, partly because of his work. And he got up at like 9:30-ish. I think it was around 9:30, and went out and started shoveling snow. 9:30, mind you. I didn't get up until about 11 because I'm a lazy bum, to put it simply. I think it was winter and I was on break, so my circadian rhythm was gone, utterly destroyed, like it is now. But yeah, I didn't get up until 11, so my mom ended up rushing me out the door and saying, go help your dad, go help him. And I was like, okay. I put on all snow gear, I got the shovel, and I started shoveling. And I made some good progress. It was very cold, and I was working really hard. And because I had gotten up at 11, and I had been rushed out the door, I hadn't eaten at all. Normally I'll eat either breakfast or lunch, depending on when I wake up, and I'll feel reinvigorated for the rest of the day, and I won't have many issues. But on that specific day, it was cold. I hadn't eaten, and I was rushed out the door and had to do manual labor for like an hour-ish. I think it was about an hour. And I was very determined. I'm very stubborn. I did what I had to. I was fine. By the end of the time that I had spent outside, I ended up slipping because our driveway is at an angle. And I slipped and fell and hit myself pretty bad on the pavement. I didn't hit any vitals. I just fell on my ass. And it hurt. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm good. I'm really frustrated and I want to just take a break. So I ended up going back inside because I didn't hurt myself that bad, but I had definitely shocked myself into realizing that I was probably pushing myself a bit too hard. And I went back inside. But when I went back inside, the moment that I stepped in the house, all of a sudden this wave of lightheadedness struck me. It's 100% because of my low blood pressure, and I know that for a fact now. So whenever I do any physical labor or anything physically intensive, I make sure that I eat before I go and do it. Because I got extremely lightheaded. And that was the first time in my life that I really realized what it was like to nearly pass out. Because I did. I nearly passed out. And I remember like, I remember every single bit of that. It wasn't like I fell out of consciousness or anything crazy. I remember feeling lightheaded, watching my vision go white, and barely being able to stand. And I was probably a good 5 seconds from passing out before I steadied myself, tried to control my breathing as best as I could. And my mom came over and rushed and helped me and said, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I said, I might have just almost passed out. So she ran to the fridge, grabbed a stick of string cheese, and I shoved it down my throat. And that immediately made me feel better. And then because my parents are my parents and they're very concerned for me, they both argued as to whether or not that was my fault, that was my dad's fault, or that was my mom's fault. And in my eyes, it was probably everyone's fault. Because instead of like being proactive and getting up and going out and shoveling with my dad, I slept in like a lazy bum. And then my mom was like, "You need to go help your dad or else he'll get pissed." So that was that. And then right after that, I nearly passed out. So it was definitely everyone. And then of course my dad got frustrated while he was shoveling because I wasn't out with him, but then immediately grew concerned because I had overdone it. But from then on, because I had seen my physical doctor, my physician, once or twice before that, because I had switched to a different doctor when I came of age. And he told me with the blood pressure test that I had naturally low blood pressure. So it was in my head that I had low blood pressure. But over time, I've slowly confirmed more and more that I have low blood pressure. So I try to play it safe, so that never happens again. Because that, it wasn't what could have been, and it was not the worst thing. But for sure, it was scary. It was scary. To ask anyone who has passed out or has come close how scary it is to lose consciousness without your control. And it really is. Not a good time, I tell you. Honestly, though, that probably wouldn't have happened, A, if I was more physically fit, and B, if I just generally helped out more. That's been a point of contention with my family for a while. Is I'm an adult. I should be helping out more. And yeah, I agree with them. It's hard to break habits though. I still have very, very childlike habits when it comes to doing things for myself. Honestly, hey, whoa, hello. Hey, I got Monster Hunter. Honestly, the whole idea of going to Japan, like leaving my home behind and living on my own for a little while, is to see if I can at least adapt to living by myself. And I've done semi-decently. Like, I'm still generally in good health. But, you know, I'm generally fatigued because of low blood pressure and poor diet. But that's sort of hard to fix when I'm stuck in a habit. And I'm a picky eater, blah, 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 blah. But I clean up after myself. I do my laundry. I go out and pay bills. Everything's on time. And everything's squared away. So it's mostly a learning experience to make sure that I can fend for myself. Because the last time that I was out and about and did things on my own was when I was in my freshman year of college. They always said when you're in college that it's a good idea to spend at least 1 year in a dorm, so you get the college experience and can be exposed to like being in the college. And yeah, no, it definitely, spending the year in a dorm was helpful. Because what it ended up doing was it ended up like allowing me to live on campus and know everything around me regularly. And I'm glad I spent the time. But on that same note, what ended up happening was I had a roommate who I was not excessively fond of. We started off on good terms, but it eventually soured because either both of us were too stubborn to really pay attention, or I don't know, one of us, I'm not gonna name names, one of us was just a belligerent jerk. Anyway, the main point of contention was neither of us knew each other's limits on like sound and quiet and sticking the room and being like having privacy and such, to the point where I was kicked out of the room once because he wanted to bang his girlfriend. I'm not even kidding. That was a really fun day. And I can't believe I bent over backwards to that. But yeah, it like I've had experiences in that dorm room. So that sort of soured my experience, and it really didn't teach me how to live by myself because I was with somebody else. So anything that could have been done in that situation was not done. Thank you for the follow. Be purely for the fact that, like, I don't know. There was 110 things that I probably should have been able to do if I was living by myself, but because not only was it just us in the dorm and we were talking with each other all the time, but the other part of that was the university I went to was only like a 40-minute drive from where I actually live. So I was in close proximity to my family anytime. So anytime I needed a bailout, I would just ask them. And I would come home every weekend by the end of it. I was attached. I was very attached to my home. So there was always a bailout where I could just give up and say, you know what, this experiment of being on my own isn't working out anymore. And I would just go home for the weekend. And I knew a lot of people who did that too. So it was a regular thing that ended up happening. By the sophomore year of college, though, I was out of that dorm, thankfully. So I ended up learning how to drive 2 years before that. Yeah, I learned how to drive at 18 instead of 16. Boo-hoo. Really, I didn't care. I didn't really need to drive because I didn't have anywhere to go. But yeah. So from that point, like, I just went to college like a normal commuter student, so I never had to deal with the dorm situation ever again. But it was a learning experience for me to like properly put my foot in the ground and say something if I'm having problems. Like, there was a time when I was in the dorm that we had grown. There had been a lot of tension. Mainly for the fact that like he decided one night to game with buddies at like 11:30, and I was trying to catch some shut-eye. And I had to put my like earbuds in order to like mute in order to get the volume out of my head because it was so loud. And I brought that up in a conversation that I had before winter break, where I put my foot in the ground and said, hey, if we're gonna live in this situation, man, we need to talk and we need to say like what is annoying about each of us. And I don't remember exactly what we had discussed. I don't anymore because it's a long shelved memory. And honestly, I haven't talked to my dorm mate in a very long time. I know that there's situations with people who are in dorms together where they have genuinely good relations, and I wish I had that, but I did not end up having that, sadly. I had to sort of fight for my right to, exist in that dorm at times. But I don't remember the exact conversation that we had to each other, but it was along the lines of we both said what we weren't enthused with the other person about, and a million other things along those lines. And we came to an agreement of like, if we're gonna be in this dorm room, we need to come to an agreement and say, hey, let's not be assholes to each other and let's speak our minds if there's any problems. And from that point on, the situation did get better. But in hindsight, like, to be blatantly honest, I really do not like him anymore. It's sad to say, because I know a lot of people have good relationships with their dorm mates, but I did not. I heard about what happened after the fact, after we spent time in the dorm together. And, like, because weirdly enough, he was in a friend group with some of my close friends. Well, like, 2 degrees or 3 degrees of separation friend group. But the girlfriend I was talking about apparently ended up breaking up with him, probably because of his behavior. So I don't know if I would say karma's a bitch in that case, but maybe people's behavior is more consistent than I would expect. It was a learning experience though, spending time in that dorm. After the fact, I ended up primarily being a commuter, like I said, so I didn't get as much general interaction with people as I had before that point. But for the time that I did spend... Is that door open correctly? Oh, that's bad. Fire hazard. But it was better for me mentally, because it allowed me to, one, actually like drive and have some freedom in that case. 2, it gave me the ability to separate myself from school where I wasn't constantly involved in it. And 3, when everything shut down, I was already used to being at home, so I could stay at home and still do school. That, though, when everything shut down, was probably the most boring year and a half of my entire life. And I've had some boring years. 2022 is actually filled with a lot of things, comparatively. Like, not as much happened, but I did way, way more in 2022, and way more things happened in 2022 than anything in 2020 and 2021. But, I don't know. College has been very hit or miss, personally, and I'm glad I'm almost done with it. I've had fun, and I made a lot of good friends. I will not say that I haven't. But, like, I wish I had done things a little differently. I need to sleep. I wish I had done things a little differently. But the amount of times that I actually managed to scrape by and like do stuff that I wasn't expecting to do in college was shocking to me. Though you'd be surprised, I'm gonna send that in chat because you'd be surprised at the amount of times that college has taken away from any time that I've dedicated to other aspects, just because school drags so hard. It really does. I want this to be too tall, I think. On that same aspect, 2021 into 2022 was honestly my most insane year that I've ever existed. There were like a million things that happened. And I won't go into every single one, but to put into a very short period of time what 2022 was like for me, what like late 2021, early 2022 was like, I essentially had 3 jobs. Yeah. If you can count being a student as a job, then I technically had 3 jobs. At that point in time, I was sort of doing like a pseudo internship for my college thesis, and that in a way did count as an employment. We weren't getting paid for it or anything because why would you get paid for school? You pay school. But that sort of counted as a job, and then I was I don't know if I mentioned. I don't think I ever have. I used to teach martial arts. Yeah. So back when I was very young, my parents had recommended me to take martial arts classes, and we found a local dojo, or dojang in Korean because it was Taekwondo. And we talked with the owner because apparently my mom was friends with the owner's wife from when she was in school. Small world. And we chatted, and I joined the martial arts program. And I had been part of that program for, no word of a lie, practically 10, if not 11 years. I ended up getting my black belt in Taekwondo in, I think it was 2015. And once I had my black belt, I started acting as an assistant instructor. So I would come in during class hours, and I would help out, and I would teach with the rest of it. Because it was a kids' Taekwondo thing, so it wasn't too bad. But it taught discipline, and it taught me how to teach, etc., etc. But by the time I became an adult, I was asked if I could fully like cover classes on certain days, and I was like, yeah, sure. So I ended up becoming a proper instructor in my own right, and I ended up teaching as an instructor for was it 3 years? Yeah, 3 years roughly. But I was doing that as well as the internship, pseudo internship thing. And then on top of that, I decided to get a job on the weekends. So every single day I was doing something. Can you say workaholic? Workaholic. Yeah, that was me. And I realized how much of a detriment that was. Like, looking back and seeing how much effort I put into every single thing I was doing all at once, and just how little I was paying attention to certain parts of that, it was a problem. It really was a problem. Like, if you're the sort of person who cannot sit still and has to be doing something all the time like me, whether it be entertaining myself with videos or something of the like, playing games, doing streams, regardless, then like you would look at my workaholic behavior and go, props. But to me, it was such a huge time sink. And I didn't have any free time. I constantly had my mind on a different thing all the time. It was helpful to keep me in line and keep me in check for as long as I could. Because after a certain point, I'd like you know how if you have a mind that races really often, you often need to like calm your jets and take a break. I ended up getting to a point where calming my jets and taking a break was my normal state, and like actually being active and doing something was secondary. So I ended up flipping it on its head in a very short period of time, where I went from not doing anything to doing way too much. Purely because I was dissatisfied with the fact that I wasn't doing anything, so I did the exact opposite and overshot. Like, you know how when you're not satisfied with something, so instead of slowly changing, you change it immediately. That's what happened. And after all that, I sort of have gone back because I overshot again. And I'm at least steady now, but I've definitely reverted more to the sedentary mentality that I had before, because I do recognize that I overdid. I overdid it when I was working essentially 2 jobs and being a student, which was also a job, so 3 jobs. I did enjoy what I was doing, though. I won't say I didn't enjoy what I was doing. But what ended up happening was school became a drag, as it always is. And then the Taekwondo, I had finally, like, I had been distancing myself from it for a while, purely because I had started to grow out of it, and I didn't find much entertainment in it. But I ended up finally stopping in, I think it was January of last year. So I said, you know what, I'm done. And I fully stopped. So that finally ended then. And then school ended in, what was it, May? Yeah, May. So I finally finished up with that. And then I was still working my part-time job on the weekends all the way through until the end of August, because I wanted to keep consistent. And I liked having income for once. I had spent most of my life with no steady income. I had started when I had helped my dad out working part-time, but I had no income until I had worked that part-time job, and I liked it. So I kept it for as long as possible until situations arose in which I couldn't continue anymore, which was, prepping to go overseas. And I spent a very, very long time in that part-time job. I don't know if I mentioned what part-time job it was, but I worked as a dishwasher, which, not the most enthusiastic thing in the world, but it's at its base, it's fine. It gets you into the working world and you get to understand stuff. But I was very, very diligent, and I liked doing what I was doing. I was very proud of myself. The 6 sense of pride thing that I like to talk with my parents about a lot, that was me. But I spent a very long time in that part-time job, where it became sort of like a second degree of like engagement for me, where I don't know, weirdly enough, that was what expanded my musical horizons. Is it weird to say that? Because while we were working, while I was working as a dishwasher, we had the luxury of being able to put a speaker, because it was a very big open restaurant, and essentially it sounded like a cafeteria, so you could barely hear anything. And they had loud overheads, and there was a lot of sound deafening, so you couldn't really hear every little thing. But we had the luxury of being able to put a speaker in the back and play music. And I was very hesitant at first, because I always am. Whenever people are like, "Hey, you should play music," I'm like, "I don't know if you guys would like it." I always think about other people before I think about myself. But I ended up like stopping with that and saying, you know what? People are gonna listen to my music. And I got so many compliments on the fact that I'm a rock person instead of the generic like pop or hip hop person, again, nothing wrong with musical tastes. They're all subjective. But I got a lot of compliments on just listening to more rock-oriented music, which surprised me. It really did. Probably because a lot of the back of the house was 110% like hardworking. Just this is a little bit of a stereotyping, but a lot of people in the back of the house were hard workers, and were usually in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and we're just generally like, where am I going? I hope I don't get lost. We're generally just like run-of-the-mill, hardworking people. Whereas the people in the front of the house, like the waiters and waitresses, were the generic, like, you know, normie kind of people, for lack of a better term. I hate using that word, but there's no really other way you could describe them. They were normal people. They were the normal, generic people of society, for lack of a better explanation. That, like, not that there wasn't anything special about them. Everyone's special in their own right, and everyone's unique. But you know what I mean. Like, it clicks. It was clicks. And the click for the back of the house was much more hard ass than the click for the front of the house. So I was surprised. Where am I even going? I was surprised when I actually got compliments on my music. And there were a couple people that I became friends with while I was working there. There's the village. There were a couple of people that I became friends with while I was working there that influenced me and gave me some really cool musical suggestions that I had never heard before. Like, there was one guy, he was in his early 30s, who we became really good friends with because I was playing Dream Theater songs, because at this point everyone probably knows that I'm a big fan of Dream Theater, but I was playing Dream Theater songs, and he goes, "Is that Dream Theater?" I was like, yes it is. He goes, "Dude, I'm so into like progressive rock and stuff," and we started chatting about that, and we just had random conversations about different musical artists, like from that sort of field, like Porcupine Tree and such. I'm probably rattling off names that most people don't know, but you get the idea. Anyway, we started chatting about that stuff, and one day he brought in his like $20 kind of crap speaker. No offense, but it was kind of crap. Just to sort of give me a sample of a bunch of different bands that I hadn't heard before. And I'm an avid listener of Coheed and Cambria. Coheed and Cambria is a really good band. They have a bit of a punk edge, but they're mostly progressive rock, progressive metal at this point. And I swear, the lead singer Claudio has a voice that I wish I had. But anyway, the aesthetic there is like stock standard progressive rock, progressive metal with soaring lead tenor vocals. Like that's my aesthetic. I like that aesthetic. So he brings over the like $20 kind of crappy boombox and was like, I got some songs on loop that you might enjoy. And he played it. It was roughly an hour of stuff, and I was like, this is all okay. Some stuff was hit, some stuff was miss. But there was one what was it? Yeah, there was one song that I was like, that sounds like Coheed and Cambria. What is that? And I asked him about it, and he goes, oh yeah, that's Thank You Scientist. They're actually signed to the same label that Claudio from Coheed and Cambria made, because they sound very similar, and he wanted to sign them because they're a really good band. And I looked into them more, and Thank You Scientist is essentially a jazz fusion project. Yeah, wild. But they incorporate progressive rock elements into their music. And the first time that I heard that song, I was like, this sounds crazy. So I opened up my Spotify, and I listened to it properly in my car, which is where I spent most of my time listening to music. And I was blown away by how different they sounded from everything else. Like, there's a bunch of progressive rock and progressive metal bands out there nowadays. I hesitate on saying the word prog because it sounds a little dumb. But there's a lot of bands like that nowadays with a similar styling. But they're so different because they incorporate violins and saxophones into a rock song. Almost like between the Buried in Me levels of chaos. And it's so cool. And there's a bunch of songs that I really listen to a bunch. I think 2 years in a row now, because he had introduced them to me in the winter of 2021. And then I became a big fan and regularly listened to them until recently, all the way until 2022. And I think 2 years running, like one Thank You Scientist song, a different one per year, was my most listened to song on Spotify. It was only like 32 or 33 listens respectively, because I'm a very, very avid listener of a bunch of different things, and I don't usually loop one thing over and over and over again. But yeah, they didn't quite dominate my Spotify, but yeah, they definitely took over for a little bit. Another thing that helped a lot with like expanding my musical horizons, weirdly enough, is Spotify's enhance function. Like I used Spotify's enhance function a couple times to get more music that I haven't heard. Ah, crap. And it's really helpful because it recommends you artists and bands that are adjacent to what's within a playlist. And I really only have one playlist. I only have the liked playlist. When I got a Spotify for like this whole streaming thing, it's different because I actually have playlists so that I can loop stuff. Oh, I just realized, pardon 1 second. I didn't realize that turned off. Give me one moment. There we go. That was weird. I didn't realize the image went away. Huh. What was I saying? Right. So when I got a Spotify for the whole streaming thing, I actually have playlists that I'm gonna throw different music into. Right now, it's just lo-fi because lo-fi is nice, and lo-fi is like one of the only genres that no one really gets mad at because everyone listens to it at one point. I swear, if you look at the lo-fi beats to study to, there's like hundreds of thousands of listeners. Because it's just chill, it's relaxing. But anyway, in my normal Spotify, I really only have a liked songs playlist, which is just every song that I've liked. And I'm very minimalistic. I don't like songs if I don't really like to listen to them, or play along to them, or sing along to them, regardless. Anyway. But yeah, the enhance function is nice because it allows you to get bands that you never would have heard of, or bands that you've probably only heard in fleeting glances that are similar to the music that you listen to. And I went from probably about 380 or 390 songs, and I'm almost at 500 now using the enhance function. It's because there is a lot on Spotify from different artists that is really cool, and they just don't get a lot of attention, either because they're not as promoted as you'd expect, or they're just not as mainstream, or a bunch of different factors. Oh, right, I wanted to make this too tall. But yeah, so if anyone says that my musical horizons aren't expanding, they very actively are. Though there are certain genres and such that I'm definitely not a huge fan of. But to get back to the thing I said briefly, where I listened to music primarily in my car. Yes, that is where a lot of my musical listening went for most of 2022, at least for the times that I was driving, which was very often on the weekends. I would drive to school, so I had a 40-minute drive where I could just listen to whatever I wanted. But I spent a surprising amount of time listening to music in the car, and I feel like that's what a lot of people do. And it's fun. It really is. That is honestly where I started practicing how to sing. I'm not good at it. I really don't think I am. But I'm improving, and I want to get better at it so that I can do something with it. And the idea of that was when I was at home, I didn't want to disturb my parents because, of course, we're in the same house and there isn't that much soundproofing, and singing's loud. It's very loud. And like I said, I'm not great. So, you know when people practice violin and they're very new to it and they're not good? I didn't want that to be me with singing. I really didn't. So I elected, instead of like practicing at home, I elected instead to sing while I was in my car, because no one else can hear you. And it was actually pretty helpful. You'd be surprised when you just start trying your absolute best to sing along to your favorite songs, how much you can improve if you try to get it right. And I went from being pretty blech, where I couldn't get tonalities right and pitch was off and I couldn't breathe properly. I still can't breathe properly, but I at least can hit notes, like, somewhat. I'm not fantastic, but one of these days I had it listed as like goals in the debut stream. One of these days I do want to try my hand at singing. I do. I think that karaoke is very entertaining, and it shows off like it'll show off some of my favorite songs, the songs that I just like. And at one point, maybe I'll do that. I'll do something else with that. But the main goal is like to just, you know, vibe and at one point, maybe in the future, play guitar on stream too, because that's my instrument of choice. But those are like pseudo plans. I don't know if I'll ever actually get around to them. I hope I do. They're goals. They are. And they're goals that I'd love to execute on. But it comes with time. And for now, I'm good with playing video games, but I do want to do more. For instance, I mentioned a couple times about the wanting to be consistent and stuff, and I mentioned like the whole Minecraft Mondays, because it's alliterative. But I haven't really talked much about. I did briefly, but I really haven't gone into my general plan or my MO for the rest of the week. On Fridays and Saturdays, the goal 100% of the time is to play whatever game is like I'm maining right now. Whether it be a single player game or a multiplayer game with a story. If it has an ending, then that's when I'll be playing those kinds of games. I said a while back that the one that we're going to be doing primarily is BioShock for now. And I played BioShock 1 all the way through, and I had a really good time with it. Pardon me. And we're going to be playing BioShock 2 this week, because I got a bit sidetracked with holidays and such. And I didn't really want to start playing BioShock 2 when I had other plans for streams at the end of the year, because I don't want to break it up. I want to start it this week, continue it the next week, and if I haven't beat it in 4 streams, continue it the following week. And we'll do the same for BioShock Infinite, because that's the follow-up. And then after that, I think, honestly, I might go straight to Dark Souls 3. I think I might just start playing FromSoft games, because those are long games. Like Dark Souls 3, I think if you play it from start to end in a timely fashion, like a good solid amount, it's like 30 hours or something like that. Which that'll take up that section of the streams. No problem. And I love FromSoft games. So we'll have an adventure with that. And you'll see how bad I am at FromSoft games too. And then, I don't know, after that I'll decide. But like, that's the goal for Saturdays and Sundays, is do something. Hold on, I have to see how I'm going to partition this out. Do something where I'm playing a mainline game as a regular series. So that way I can put it in a playlist and I can talk about it and I can have something for people to come back to at the end of every week, yada, yada, yada. And obviously everything will be up on the VODs always, because Twitch does not save VODs for very long, so I want somewhere for all my stuff to be, and that's where it's all gonna be, is on YouTube. I've only had one partial block because of music that played during a Bioshock stream, so I think it's still safe to put up there. And as long as it is, I need to do this diagonally. As long as it is, I'm gonna continue. Oh, perfect, it is. Never mind. Yeah, so that's that. But for Mondays, at least for now, it's gonna be Minecraft. And I'm only gonna do Minecraft once a week, because if I turn into a full-on Minecraft streamer, I don't wanna be that. I really don't. I like the variety. I like doing different things. I never like to be pigeonholed into one thing. I don't know if I'll ever bring, and I probably will, but I don't know if I'll bring Destiny 2 back anytime soon. I played that as sort of a comfort game to get me rolling on the whole streaming thing, and I do like Destiny 2. I still play it regularly. But I don't know, it feels like a game that I can't stream. It feels like more of a game where I need to just turn my brain off and watch someone else's content in a weirdly stated way. But you get the idea. It's like I need to watch a podcast when I play Destiny. I can't like talk and play Destiny at the same time. Maybe eventually. But who knows? If I do go back and play Destiny, it will be on my main account. I'll pop into the sub account every so often, but it was mainly just an introductory thing so that I get an idea of like what it's like to be a new light, because I had never experienced that before. I've always been a fully paid player, so seeing the new light experience and seeing how kind of meh it is has turned me off a little bit from that. I'm not gonna like downplay my favorite game, and I'm not gonna entice it for being good or bad either. It's all right. The new light experience is all right. They need to flesh it out more. They really do. But yeah, if I go back, it'll probably be on my main, because I have ideas in mind for what to do with Destiny content. And Destiny is a weird game. It's one of those games where if you don't play it, it's hard to like be entertained by the content. At least that's how I feel. There's nothing wrong with watching content on games you don't play. I do that all the time. But it feels like one of those games where you sort of have to know what's going on, or else it feels like you're walking into a minefield. Case in point, one of my best friends plays Final Fantasy XIV very regularly, and every time we talk about it, I'm completely at a loss as to what he's even talking about. Because that's just the deal with MMOs. Their barriers to entry are so vast because there's so many mechanics and there's so many different things. Destiny isn't exactly an MMO, but it's definitely trying to be. Same with Warframe, honestly. That was actually my second most played game of the year, which shocked the hell out of me. But yeah, it's the same with that too. There's definitely a barrier to entry with a lot of those things. I might actually play Warframe at one point. I do miss that game. I haven't played it in a couple of months. But, you know, we'll see what comes with time. Every year is different. Did I make this offline? Oh, off alignment. Looks like I did. Hold on. Why does that look off? Hold on. I did. Ugh. Hang on. Why is this back one? Yeah, I'm gonna fix this. That's what happens when I get distracted. Anyway, yeah, so Mondays is gonna be predominantly Minecraft. Because it's definitely easy to talk and play Minecraft at the same time. It's also just the best, like one of the best creative games. I mentioned a couple times, it's one of the best creative games. So even if there's quote unquote nothing to do, there's always something to do. And it involves building. Eventually, at one point, I'll probably get to the point where this survival world is very stable, and I have a bunch of resources that I don't know what to do with, and I'll just start randomly building stuff. But for now, you know, it's just basic survival and building a house with the small amount of wood that I have. I think that looks good. Yeah, it looks fine. Maybe I should make this. Yeah, no, that's fine. But Wednesdays, I'm still trying to work out. I want Wednesdays to be at least somewhat variety. I think that's the goal. So for this Wednesday, I'm going to be ranking Devil May Cry games. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, essentially, I have played every single Devil May Cry game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and DMC. All of them. So I have a good idea of like which of them are good and which of them are bad because I've played them all. Again, it will be my own opinion. Everyone's opinions is different, which is kind of why like a million people make tier lists and rankings and things because everyone's opinion is different and people like listening to others' opinions sometimes. But I want to like go over all of the Devil May Cry games because they're great games. They really are. And give my personal take on them. And it's also just fun to talk about Devil May Cry because, again, I've played all of them. So, you know, it's interesting to just sort of go over what makes each game good, what makes 2 bad, because 2's bad. And just talk about Devil May Cry. Because, I don't know, maybe at one point I'll actually properly play them. I would definitely have to pick one, though. But yeah, that I would count as variety because it's mainly going to be chatting. So, for the future, I don't know where I'm going to take the Wednesday streams. But the idea is that it should be something different. It's not going to be the same as Monday, which is probably going to be whatever general like mainstream game is. Right now it's Minecraft because Minecraft's chill. Did I screw this up again? No, I was not looking. There we go. Minecraft's chill. Minecraft's easy. But this could be like Call of Duty or Warframe or Destiny or whatever I want for Mondays. It'll change over time. My interests change over time. Oh, I want that backwards, actually. But for now, it's Minecraft. Wednesday, I don't want to be gaming all the time. If it's gaming, it's going to be short. And if it's not gaming, it's going to be talking about stuff. It could also be different things, like whatever variety content I can think of as I go. That's honestly the hardest part, is thinking of variety content as it stands right now. Streaming takes a lot. Streaming does take a lot. In order to be consistent but also have a good time, you have to be a bundle of ideas. You do. And at one point, maybe I'll like get suggestions or something. But as it stands right now, it's just me. So I'm fine. I'm fine with doing what I'm doing right now. But I have plans for the future, and I do want to spice things up somewhat. I don't want to just be the same all the time. That looks nice. You know, I'm glad I did that. Color balance is a bit wonky because everything's only 2 colors. Maybe I'll add some texturing to the floor. Or I could add carpets if I get cheap. But yeah. My backlog of games is incredibly long, so the Friday, Saturday streams, where I play games regularly, that's gonna be where a lot of stuff happens. I tell you that. This is probably gonna be, these streams are probably gonna be more just general discussions while playing games, and then Wednesday, like I said, variety. Whatever comes to my head throughout the week. But as it stands right now, I want to be consistent. So the schedule for this week is going to be as it is, and then next week is probably the only thing that's going to be different is the Wednesday. And we're going to see how that goes for all of January and see if I like how that works. And if I don't, I'll switch things up. But I still have that mental idea of the theme stream, or the themed month of streaming rather. I mentioned in the New Year's one, but I want one month of streaming to have some variety to it. And it to all be themed around a certain topic. I don't know what it'll be. Maybe it could be music, maybe it could be a specific kind of game or something along those lines. But I want themed streams where I'm doing a similar thing for the whole month, and it'll be easy for people to follow. I'm talking about a lot of the same stuff that I talked about on that New Year's stream, but it's just to double down and like confirm that that's what I'm planning on doing with it. And that is what I'm planning on doing with it. I have some ideas. I won't go over them now. But it's a plan, and I hope to execute on it. It'll take a lot. It'll take a lot of prep, though, because that means I have to organize everything. And organizing even 1 week for me can be challenging at times, so organizing a full month might take the life out of me. But it might end up being really fun. And like I've said a couple times, that's what's most important is having fun. This music's nice. I'm glad I set up the audio situation, because I was really wondering about that to get everything working. But we're here now, so it's nice to be able to listen to different things. I have an idea in the future to where I can use the on-stream audio as like a fun bank of things. So we throw ideas in and like come out the other side with a bunch of really cool stuff to listen to. But you know, keeping the live separated from the VOD to give us more options is really nice, and I'm gonna stick with it. For games that have background audio, you won't hear this. Like, you won't hear anything that we're hearing right now. But for now, it's nice, and I can run it in the background with no issue. Or at least I think. If something in the future happens where I'm not allowed to do this anymore, I'll make a compromise. Wow, I made a lot of progress. That looks like a big block of nothing right now. I mean, it looks different, but it looks like a big block of nothing right now. Oh, that's right. I know what I wanted to do. So, if I start... How do I want to do this? Probably 2 in from this side. And then 2 in from this side. I definitely need better tools, but I'm not a miner by nature. I'm a builder. That's why the first thing I did is build a house. Always. The coolest part to me, though, in Minecraft, I'd say, is the farms, the automated farms. I've dabbled in that, and I started working on a couple in a different survival server that I had made about 6 months ago, just to get some idea. But they are difficult sometimes. Thankfully, there's tutorials all over the internet. Come on with the axe. Yeah, it looks decent. Oh, I'm stuck. Whoopsie. But yeah, maybe at one point I'll start building farms so that I don't have to go out and collect materials. But being right next to a village helps a lot. I haven't even looted them. Probably the nicest neighbor they've ever had. That looks nice. I don't mind that at all. I need to cut in a bit more. Do I want that to be wider? Yeah, probably a little bit. Oh, that's why it looked weird. I don't have to cut out the probably the top layer up here. You know, I wasn't super agreeing on the floor here, but I think because I added these posts, it helps out to a degree. Again, it's not perfect. It'll all come together when I'm done, as it always does. But as it stands right now, work in progress. So every little thing. Yeah, I'm gonna widen this out some. Oh, that's an issue. Let me invert this. And then I have to add one back here. That will be probably glass. Yeah, so I want this to be there. Come on. Come on. Come on. There. And I'll copy to the other side. Do I even need guardrails for this? I might want them. But I also don't want to interfere with this. Tricky, tricky. Being able to see the floor below helps, though. Also, I don't take fall damage because it's not that high. Let me mark this. All right, let's see. Yeah, I want this to definitely be glass. I don't know if I want it to be glass panes or not. But if I add posts here, I can still walk through. Maybe if I add... Yeah, I think I know what I'll do. This is gonna be weird, but it might work. Should I start collecting sand for glass? I think so. I'll probably use panes. Oh, I need a shovel. Imagine if all these, if all the crafting in Minecraft was realistic. Then you'd have to make an anvil really, really fast. Speaking of anvils, another thing that I tend to watch occasionally on YouTube, and not very frequently, is definitely like those restoration videos. If you know what I'm talking about, where people take old rusted objects and turn them new. I find that really intriguing. I don't know if all of it's real. I think most of it is because they go through a lot of the process. Like, I think my mechanics is fully real with his restoration stuff. But it's interesting to see how much weathering damage that something can take over time, and then how people can use that and turn it into something, turn it back into something that's functional. That's also really, really hard to do. Like, if you ever found a rusted object, there's a cave nearby. If you ever found a rusted object in a river or something, and tried to get all the rust off, fix it, make sure all the mechanics work properly, and then make it functional again, there's so much that goes into that. You have to disassemble it, if it's a mechanical something or other. You have to make sure that all the parts and all the internals are cleaned out. You have to make sure that all the rust is off, that every part that is functional can still function, etc., etc. So yeah, seeing people do that is really intriguing, because it's just, it also has that ASMR quality to it, where it's just semi-relaxing. That's definitely not enough sand, but we'll make do. And it also includes a lot of, weirdly enough, a lot of chemistry. Sometimes they use electrolysis to take off the extra layers of rust. Rust itself is just iron oxide that you can flake off. And there's a lot to it. Blacksmithing, too, is really cool. Smithing in general is cool. Probably has to do with the fact that I just like creative stuff. But yeah. Honestly, yeah, no, it's just the fact that I like creative stuff. I like seeing people make stuff from scratch. And it's inspiring in one way or another, because there's a ton of people who you think would, like, how do they manage to be smiths like that? And it's just years of work and dedication, and they decide to upload their craft onto YouTube. That's how most people, I think, become famous from that stuff, is they've been doing it either as a hobby or as a job for a long time, and then they say, hey, what if I decided to upload this to a YouTube channel? And they do, and it ends up either going viral or they end up getting popular because of it. That looks horrible. Hang on. They end up getting popular because of it, and it becomes really, really entertaining content. It's, to me, the smithing content and the restoration stuff is way better than any of that slime garbage. I really hope, if you know what I'm talking about, you haven't seen any of it. It's really dumb. It's probably the dumbest content I've ever watched in my life. It's essentially people who just make weird, gross, like, ASMR slime and then just squish it. And that's the whole content. Like, do something else, please. Sorry to be that guy, but do something else, please. There's way more entertaining things you could do, but it's some of it's probably for kids, and YouTube Kids is weird. Wasn't there something with YouTube Kids, where now the most viewed video on the platform is like a YouTube Kids nursery rhyme or something? Something like that. I don't know. I haven't investigated that situation in a while because I'm not a kid. So it's not content that's recommended to me, thankfully. Oh, I had acacia logs. Oops. Probably 2 sets of stairs. Yeah, that's not content that's recommended to me, so I don't know much about it, but I know that it recently surpassed what was it? Despacito? Not recently, but, you know, recent enough in the chronological scale of things. So that isn't saying much. Saying recent in the chronological scale of things is like saying, yeah, France was recently taken over in World War II. Like, okay, buddy. That's the engineering what is it? The engineering estimate? It's between 3 and 30. The actual number is like 15. Well, yes, 15 is between 3 and 30. That has no accuracy. I would know. I took engineering. Oh, that is a stair. Gotcha. But yeah, like, there's a bunch of content I consume regularly that isn't like stock standard gaming or VTubing or stuff like that. I've been on YouTube for a very long time, so my ingestment of content is very filtered, and I pick only stuff that I want to see. I'm actually very strange when it comes to YouTube. I have a weird thing where I like my YouTube history to look a certain way. So what I'll end up doing is, if there's a video that's in my recommended that I don't want in my YouTube history, that screws with my recommended, what I end up doing is I will open it in a private tab and watch it that way. I can probably get rid of these. Yeah, I'll open it in a private tab and watch it that way. And it prevents that specific video from being detected by the algorithm saying, hey, you seem to like this content, how about this content? Because I want to keep my standard YouTube at least somewhat focused. I do the same with Twitter, where I like to keep stuff focused. I will actively say, like, oh, I don't want this, and I don't want to see this tweet if it's something that's either too risque or too irrelevant to what the content I want to see. But yeah, my YouTube wise is definitely filtered in that sense, where I want things to look a certain way. And sometimes the algorithm has no idea what it's talking about when it recommends videos. Trust me, there's been times when I've looked at what the algorithm has recommended to me and I've gone, how is that relevant to anything that I'm doing right now? And sometimes I get new content for people. I think I mentioned Wendigoon before on the more obscure content, explanatory side of YouTube. And I started watching him back, I think, when he did the SCP iceberg, because I was watching SCP content from like the Vulgan and other people, I think SCP Illustrated as well, and that was recommended to me. And this was back when Wendigoon had like less than 100k subs, way long time ago. And I started following his content because he just is really good at explaining things and it's just entertaining. And it's essentially him sharing his niche interests with a large audience. And now he's working on Stalker, Shadow of the Zone with people who did SCP Dollhouse and SCP Overlord. And it's crazy to see how far he's grown from stuff like that. And it was literally from a video recommendation that I found and started watching his content, which is crazy to think about. Oh yeah, that's right. I know what I wanted to do. Oh wait, I could do a different thing with this. I think this will look better. Let's add some poles here. Yeah, that looks good. And it attaches to the walls. That looks good. But yeah, YouTube recommended is both terrible and good at times. And the times when it's good, it's introduced me to some really cool stuff. Speaking of Wendigoon and that sort of area of YouTube, I do really like analog horror. It's one of the very niche things that I do actually really like. I'm not as engaged as some people are, where I'm mainly more of like a secondary, like, oh, if someone explains the analog horror, I'll watch that and then go back and watch the analog horror. I won't watch it like as it releases. But honestly, the people who do analog horror stuff are great storytellers. To list off a couple of ones that I find super intriguing and super disturbing, Gemini Home Entertainment is one. It does a really good job with its premise. Let's see. Local 58 is another. Local 58, I think, is what inspired Gemini. Local 58, I think, inspired a lot of analog horror, to be honest. Obviously, Mandela Catalog, which is the internet darling of the analog horror world right now. And Alex Castor is a very talented guy. I follow him on Twitter because he's great. He can be a filmmaker in his own right, let's be honest. Other stuff is, there is one analog series by, it's Nephthys Media, called Planets, which is essentially analog horror space. And that is cool too. It's not as polished as the other ones, but it still does its job, and it's very intriguing, and it's cosmic horror. Cosmic horror is always good. Cosmic horror is always good. On that same line, whoever did Tangivirus, I forget the name off the top of my head, but Tangivirus and that whole series of videos is also pretty crazy. It's essentially like a brainwashing virus that turns people into not monsters, turns people into like perpetually happy, perpetually content with life. People who are trying to spread the parasite further, almost like a Invasion of the Body Snatchers level. And on that same line, Smile Tapes. Smile Tapes is essentially someone in the comments of the first Smile Tapes video said it's essentially the Germa sus face, but analog horror. You know the Germa sus face, the Germa 985 sus face. But it's actually good. It actually tells a pretty good story, and as the parts go on, it gets more involved. And the one that's honestly the most batshit off the wall insane, I'd say, is Monument Mythos and everything by Mr. Manikar, also known as Alex Kasanis. that stuff is wild. The Monument Mythos is absolutely wild. If you've never seen the Monument Mythos, essentially what it is in an alternate universe, there are eldritch beings that either possess or control monuments. And that is the very basic way of describing what it actually is. It's way more in depth than that, and what I said is technically wrong in universe. But it's really involved, and it's essentially alternate history America. If there were eldritch beings that coexisted with humans, and the United States government was fully aware of this and took measures to like contain them, and it goes a million different ways. To give you an anecdotal example, the Statue of Freedom is alive, sentient, and has a blade made of a glass called Giza glass, which perfectly severs body parts but keeps them alive. And if you sever someone's head with Giza glass, their head inflates into a balloon and they become a canyon crown, or what is it? Crown Galan or something like that. Canyon Galan. It's a mishmash word. But essentially, like all of these things come together and culminate in this crazy experience where there's a bunch of different things that make no sense until they come together and the story like fleshes itself out fully and ties a bunch of loose ends. And after season 1, because there's 3 seasons, they are actually separated into seasons. After season 1, it moves on to season 2, which further introduces more characters and ties things together and goes nuts. But like after that point, because it's like a pseudo ending with season 2. Like if you watch season 1 and season 2 together, it's an open and shut case. Season 3 picks up after season 2, but what ends up happening is it's a completely different canon. It's the same multiverse, but it's a completely different canon where things are different. And season 3 is where it goes from cosmic horror and crazy absurdist creatures doing crazy absurdist things and essentially ruining the world to a like Superman fanfic in a weird way. That's not a bad thing. It's way more involved than that. But it essentially becomes this like superhero story where I don't know how to describe it. Essentially, it's 2 superheroes who have powers that are adjacent to the previous universe, and they're like in this new universe where everything's different, and a lot of crazy stuff happens. There's moon people. Like seriously, it's hard. It's one of those series that's hard to describe unless you watch it. So if you like analog horror stuff and you like crazy storytelling, it's nuts. It's insane. It's probably one of the most insane analog horror or analog. It's not even horror anymore. It's just cool. One of the most insane series on YouTube. So I really recommend it. Probably as a good selling point in the first universe in seasons 1 and season 2, James Dean is president. Yeah, that James Dean, the one who got in a car crash. Yeah, he's president. He becomes president of the United States. The series is wild, man. It's really crazy. But I love it. And it's a wonderful bit of world building and storytelling, and I can't get enough of that. It's why I made my lore video in the first place. I might not execute on the concept, but it's a good place to start world building if I ever want to do any world building with me in the future. I already have some degree, like I have an age that's clearly intangible. I have a history that doesn't make any sense. I'm a time traveler, you know? But I prefer not to stick to the lore too heavily because it can get a little overbearing. I just like, you know, shooting the shit, as you can hear. It's my entire personality is talking about random garbage. It's random in one aspect, but at the same time, like I try to give you an idea of what's going on in my head. And just talking about the analog horror stuff, it's been on my mind for a while. So you know. And it's always fun to talk. It really is. There is a saying that silence is golden, and I agree. But at the same time, telling fun stories and sharing experiences always has its passions. And I like talking about stuff. It's fun to tell stories, both true and fictional. At one point I did want to be a writer. Because, you know, the whole I like storytelling thing. But that's another thing that I've never quite gotten a full grasp of. Because literature is difficult. That's probably the hardest of all the, what are they called? Of all the creative fields, at least to me. Art is also very difficult, but depending on what kind of artist you are, like whether you're a comic book artist or a set piece artist, concept artist, different things, character artist, sometimes it's open and shut cases. Books, you have to tell a story, and it has to be good. And we had creative writing classes back in when I was back in middle school and a little bit of high school. And I had written the occasional story, and I have them saved somewhere. There was one I remember I was going to write. This is going to sound so immature-ish, but it was essentially like you know Bleach. You know how everyone is essentially like a death's advocate, Shinigami, I believe they're called. It was similar to that, where the main character was like part of the Reaper Corps, and there was this guy named Grimm, spelled with 2 M's, and that was his employer. It's a story that's been told quite a few times now, but back when I was in middle school, I was like, hey, that seems like a cool idea, and it's adjacent to some of my interests. This was, I think, pre-anime phase too, so I don't know where I got the idea from. This was far before. It probably was Bleach, actually, because when I say pre-anime phase, that's sort of discounting when I was much younger and I saw Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. You know, the main 4 popular ones on what was it, Toonami, on Adult Swim. And that was like my immediate exposure, and I grew up with that stuff. But I was never into like the anime until I was in my teens. But that's semantics. But yeah, I had other writing projects with like, what was it? There was something that went along the lines of like, you know, it was always based on something I'm realizing now. You know the movie 23 with Jim Carrey, where he constantly sees the number? Yeah, I was gonna do the same thing with 31. I don't know why I decided that. It was, I don't know. But it was always based off, well, I think one that wasn't based off something was I had written a story about a kid who went to school, and he was convinced, like in a almost in a psychopathic state, that he was in a nightmare because no one was around. There were no teachers, there were no students, no faculty was there, and he somehow managed to get into the school because I guess the front door was open or it was unlocked or something, and no one was there. And he was in a dead set panic because he was like, "Where's the students? Where's my class? Where am I not going to class?" And the twist at the end was it was a Sunday, so no one was there. Stupid, I know, but remember, this is like middle school stories. I think the most involved like writing thing I ever did was I created this was like 3 or 4 years ago, I created a fan SCP. And if I remember correctly, the concept was, I don't know if anyone's actually done this concept or not, but the concept was, it is a mirror that prevents people from actively looking at it. Like, looking at it causes severe nausea and drowsiness, so the longer you look at, the worse you feel. But if you are somehow immune to the effects of the mirror, like if you look at the mirror and you're not affected by it, you will slowly transmogrify into an inanimate object. So, like, if you look at the mirror and you're not grossed out by it, or you don't feel anything, then the mirror has decided that you are chosen, and you turn into like a chair. So it's essentially a mirror that weeds out people who are immune to its effects, and turns them into inanimate objects. And I also think I mentioned that it turns inanimate objects into animate objects. So if you put like a stopwatch in front of it, it turns into like a beetle. And I thought the idea was cool, but I wasn't sure where to take it, because the thing with SCP is it's very involved. Why is this only 4? Oh, am I off by 1? Wait, why is this 5 and the other one's... Hang on a second. Something's wrong. I need to stop what I'm talking about for a second, because I need to make sure that everything's aligned correctly. Is one side... Don't tell me that one side of this is longer than the other. Oh, I really hope it's not. Hold on. Is it? It looks like it is. Oh, you're kidding. I did all that and it's off by 1. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, did I count wrong? Let me check. I'll get back to talking about SCP in a second. I need to make sure that this is not... Hang on. What a shame. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 15. 6, 7, 10. Wow. Okay. So I think my best course of action is to expand out this side over here. Yeah, so let's do that. But yeah, the thing with SCP is that it's all a creative writing thing, and it's all about world building. So having a mirror that turns chosen people into inanimate objects, there's really nowhere you can go with that, unless you say like car turns into bear and like attacks facility or something like that. I don't know. It was just thoughts. And again, that's why I think writing is hard, because you need to have some degree of cohesion. And it's difficult. It's difficult to get things to be the way you want them to be, especially in a story. That's why characters are so difficult to... Oopsie. Wah. That's why characters are so difficult to write. And going back to the anime discussion, it's why so many shows tend to flop, because they rely too much on either character design or the premise of the world, and then they don't make their characters... They don't write their characters correctly. But it's all part of the process. The people who do strike gold... really makes some well-done stories. I mean, some of those popular stories ever are genuinely influential, like Harry Potter, Star Wars. Well, Star Wars isn't a book, but you get the idea. And obviously Lord of the Rings. A majority of the high fantasy that we see nowadays wouldn't exist without J.R.R. Tolkien. And I do like Lord of the Rings. I think I mentioned before. I don't really like The Hobbit, though. It's kind of boring. I've read the book, though. But yeah, that's how we get to Dungeons and Dragons. That's how we got there. Which, I think Dungeons and Dragons was not invented, but it was created in the 80s. And it's been around for that long. I'll always say that Dungeons and Dragons content is the most expressive form of character creation, because you are literally doing exactly what writers do with just yourself. This actually looks good. I like the colors. You're doing exactly what you would be doing as a writer. Thank you for the follow. And there's so much to it. There really is. I've dabbled. I think oh man, it was a while ago. It was like a month and a half ago. I talked about my first ever D&D campaign, but yeah. Hello, good to see you. Just playing Minecraft and chatting about Dungeons and Dragons because it came to my head. But yeah, it's been like a month and a half since I talked about that, but that was like when I was back in college. That was when I learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't know when I'll play again. I really want to, though. Like, character creation is so cool, and giving lore to things. I don't know. Well, I'll see where I get with that. And the last time I played Dungeons and Dragons was like 2 years ago, at least. Something crazy. Oh yeah, absolutely. I did design my VTuber. Yes. I can go into a little bit about that if you'd like. Essentially, I had an idea stewing in my head for a while, where I wanted like a sort of color contrast of blue and orange, because I wasn't sure exactly what to do with it. But I don't know. It's like, it's unique in the sense of adding color in places you wouldn't expect, but also keeping the design simple. And I think I came up with something that looks decent. I did pretty much, I'd say a good 90% of it 100% myself. So thanks for the compliment. I really appreciate it. I've had 2 people comment that now, and I'm very glad. I thought I was being a bit generic, but I guess I wasn't. Hey, but thank you. Thank you very much. What was I saying? Right, Dungeons and Dragons. I definitely want to play sometime again. It was always a fun experience. But as it stands right now, I sort of have no way to execute on that. Friend brought up using a VTuber model. Yeah, okay. I can actually give you some tips for this. I know a lot of people talk about where to get VTuber models and stuff like that. If you're planning on doing 2D, which was my plan for a while, if you're planning on doing a proper PNG, if you are not a trained artist, which I'm not either, it can be expensive. You get more design cues and you get more freedom, but it can be expensive because you're gonna have to commission someone to do 2D for you. 3D, on the other hand, is much, much easier. 3D, there are programs like VRoid Studio, which is what I used as a template. And it gives you a bunch of customization, like you can do different clothes, you could do different hair, and you can make yourself look pretty much any way you want, as long as it's within the realms of VRoid Studio. It's completely free, it's on Steam, and it's great for designing, and it's great for getting character concepts or fully designing a model from scratch if you'd like. But that is what I used. For myself, I actually added a bit to it. But yeah, VRoid Studio is absolutely the way to go. If you just want to get a model to give yourself something, give yourself something. Eventually, I actually do plan on upgrading, but keeping the design cues the same. But that'll come with time. As it stands right now, I'm just happy with what I have, and I'm happy that I could do something. It's difficult because it is all about design, and it's about standing out in a general sea of a lot of people doing the same thing. But yeah, definitely VRoid Studio if you want something for free and you want something to give you at least a base idea or a general concept of what you're looking for. No, of course, of course. I'm glad you'd be here, and I wanted to at least give you some tips because you asked really nicely. But trust me, I'm very rambly, so if someone interjects in chat and asks me a question, or like starts up a new topic, I'll probably latch onto that. But yeah, no worries. Don't worry about it. I like talking about random things, so I don't mind. Anyway, back to D&D. So yeah, I love the idea of character concepts, as is clear by like all the stuff that I've been doing with the VTubing. But in a different way, you know, like you can do accents, you can do character ideas that are like fundamentally different from who you are as a person. I mean, you could do that with streaming as well. It just feels a little awkward. I see that a lot on Twitter where people go a little too hard into the what's it called? The character roleplay stuff. And roleplaying has its place. I've seen people do it occasionally. But for being a streamer, I prefer the more casual, off the cuff sort of being myself mentality. And I feel like that's more natural and that is more comfortable. But yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, on the other hand, you are heavily encouraged to roleplay. And I've done my fair share of characters. I've done what was my second campaign? I think I had more fun in my first campaign than my second campaign. But the second one, I played a rogue tiefling with a thick Boston accent. And he was essentially like a complete belligerent who wanted nothing to do with anybody, but ended up allying with people because he had no other choice. I don't remember if I think I was chaotic neutral. Yeah, I must have been chaotic neutral. But that was a fun experience because anytime something happened, I was always the brash, brazen one of the group who either had some random quip or an asshole level remark. Can we hear my Boston accent? I mean, I can try. I'm from near that area. Give me 1 second. It was more along the lines of something like this, where it was really heavily into the Boston accent. So, you know, the aggressive, like, what the hell do you think is wrong with this situation? I swear, I wish that I wasn't here, and like quips like that. And it has that almost like mafioso level to it. You know what I mean? It's got like super exaggerated, but it's there. Oh, New Jersey. Yeah. The thing about New Jersey is I've met a couple people from New Jersey, and there's not really that heavy of an accent unless you're in certain more urban areas. It's the same with most of the Northeast in the U.S. So, but yeah, I'm adjacent to Boston. I don't live in Massachusetts, but I'm adjacent to it. But yeah, the accents kind of run rampant around this area. I try my absolute best to get at least some degree of non-regional diction. Yeah, New Jersey is where you hear it, North Jersey. I try my best to avoid at least some regional diction because there is a certain extent to where I try my absolute best to avoid accents, but it's hard. It's hard sometimes. It's how you're raised, and everyone has an accent, like, especially in different countries that have native English speakers, like anyone from the UK. Even the UK has different accents in different parts of it. It's not all just London. There's Wales, there's Liverpool, Scotland, obviously, Northern Ireland. Everybody's different, and that's just the general areas. But accents are funny in a sense because we're all speaking the same language, but we're all saying the words differently. And there is a bit of lost in translation at times, even in the US. Northern US versus Southern US is one example. But it depends. It really depends. I personally am very used to the quote-unquote Northerner dialect, so hearing it doesn't really faze me all that much. It can be aggressive at times. New Jersey, Kentucky, and Delaware, and Pennsylvania, so your accent's all over the place. Oof. An amalgamation of different things, I would assume. My dad has a bit of Massachusetts left in him. I think that's his claim to fame. He's still to this day prefers to say buck instead of dollar, because whenever he says dollar, it's dollar. He says dollar. He cannot say it any way else. And it's the funniest thing. Honestly, though, if we were to talk about like extremities of accents, I don't know. My family's pretty standard when it comes to the Northeast. It's not like we don't have accents and we didn't grow up with accents, but we aren't as bad as people around us, like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, that area. There's some horrible accents in New England, trust me. But the idea of that is, I feel like it has to do with the fact that I spend a lot of my time on the internet, so I hear all different accents all the time. So any accent that I might have had is lost to time. There's a couple words here and there that are still pretty much, the accent of where I come from. But it's very scarce because I've spent a lot of my time listening to different people talk. And it just, I don't know, it just fades over time, the specific nuances. For my parents, though, they're a bit heavier. Like, I think of everybody, my mom has probably the thickest accent, but even hers is minor. There are people I've met and or heard, like, the principal of my old high school had the thickest, most disgusting New England accent I think I've ever heard in my life. It was really bad. And not only that, he had a bit of Elmer Fudd syndrome, if you know what that is, where every single time he talked, he couldn't pronounce R's. They were W's. And we used to make fun of our principal, but we used to make fun of him so much for that because the man could not pronounce his R's. So that on top of the accent just doubled down, and it was all a mess. Man, I on one hand I miss that time, but on the other hand I'm glad to be done with high school. I never want to go back. I met a lot of lifelong friends, for sure, but like no, never again. That's the one, I guess, saving grace of school, is a lot of people that you'll meet, you can make long-lasting relationships with. So while most of your time is focused on like being in school and such, there is that degree of you make long-lasting relationships. Some good, some bad. But it depends. A lot of the people who I talk to regularly, two of them I made. Well, one of them is my lifelong childhood friend, who I've known since I was in preschool. Another one is someone I met through like a friend of a friend, because we all played the same game. We all played Destiny 2. No, actually at that time it was Destiny 1. So this was like 2014, 2015. And we met each other because we played the same games and we were friends of each other, and like different schools, different friends, but we ended up getting together. And while that friend group isn't as close-knit as it used to be, the friend of the friend, who is now one of my best friends, is one of my best friends. So it's weird how that worked out. And then another one I met in high school, weirdly enough, but was friends with some of my other friends who were friends in middle school. Friends. So school's nice for that, where you meet different people. Some people have had very bad experiences, and yeah, I get it. Trust me. School's not for everybody, and kids are assholes. Trust me, I've had a couple quote unquote acquaintances who weren't exactly the nicest bunch. Like I'm pretty sure one person who I regularly talk to in elementary school and a bit of middle school is now in jail. To give you some idea. Because yeah, that's just how the cookie crumbles. Some people don't exactly know how to be adults and be functional members of society without being tumultuous. But anyway, it's good for that. It is. College, on the other hand, was a bit more hit or miss. I made some good friends with the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, but I don't really talk to any of them now, sadly. But I did make some really good friends in college who I still talk to. It's all about connections. That's the important thing. This, though, this is a whole new endeavor to me, this whole streaming thing. So, who knows? Who knows? Everything has connections, and everything's about connections. And I've set one of my goals for this year to be meet new people. And I said on the New Year's celebration, I'm grateful to everyone who is here and everyone who spent time. Even just like interacting with me for like half a second, I'm eternally grateful. Y'all are the best. But I do want to like properly meet new people and talk with people, because there's a bunch of awesome people who actively stream and make content and do art and all these things, and it's its own can of worms. And I do want to break out of my shell a little bit. I'm very much an antisocial person, not in a negative way, but more secluded, to where making friendships takes a lot out of me, and I'm somewhat untrusting. I have trust issues, I'd say. But you know, there's some genuinely nice people, and one of these days, I'm sure I'll meet some. I've already met a couple, and they've been really nice. But again, that's semantics, and it comes with time. Everything's time. Something not a lot of people realize. Everything's time. But it's you know. I cannot believe I'm still sort of shocked that I screwed this up. I was a one-off. But yeah, that's my spiel on a bunch of different things. So far, progress on the house has been pretty good. I actually really like the color contrast. I don't know why I decided on Acacia, but maybe because it's nearby. It matches the village, too. I have so many ideas for Minecraft as well. There's just... When I play Minecraft, millions of ideas, I'm not kidding, millions of ideas race through my head with stuff I want to build when I get into the building spirit. And very recently, I've been doing that. I built a pseudo end city on the modded Minecraft server that I have with my friends back in the States. And that like structure is really cool. Oh yeah, absolutely. If you wanna get some ideas of like who I am and what I do, wow, I haven't done this ever. My name is obviously Jacob. It's very nice to meet you. I am primarily a gaming streamer. I try to at least spice it up with some variety content. But you know, it's hard to think about streams every so often, but majority of me is just rambling. I like talking about stuff. On my Twitter, I changed my bio recently to say I'm a guy who talks too much, because I do talk too much. But you know, I'm gonna stream Minecraft on Mondays, because I'm really enjoying playing the game right now. But for the rest of the week, I have I'm gonna be talking about Devil May Cry on Wednesday, if you've ever played that, just as a fun little variety stream that I thought of. And then on Friday, I'm gonna be continuing what I had started a couple weeks back, which is playing BioShock 2. Like mainly, I like playing all different kinds of games. And I like just talking over different types of games. And depending on whether or not the game is really involved or really not involved, I'll either talk about random things like I'm doing for Minecraft, or I'll talk about like what's going on in the game. I have two channels. I have a VODs channel and a main channel that I just recently created. And on my main channel, I have quick little video edits and snippets of all my content. that I've been working on so far. I haven't made a short for this week, but I probably should. But yeah, I'm going to probably post shorts there, which is just little highlights from the stream, and then all my streams go to my VODs channel. And in general, I'm just trying to have a good time and make some fun content. I have a Twitter, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm working on a Discord server. So if you enjoy any of my stuff, please visit me there. I don't like self-promotion all that much, but thought I'd at least mention it once. But yeah, that's the idea. It's mainly just, turning on the camera, vibing, playing video games, having a good time, talking about random stuff, and talking with people in chat, which is also a really fun time. And I also realized I've just been running in circles while I've been giving my spiel. Yeah, that's true. I'm just waiting. It feels icky. I don't like being super promoty about stuff. It feels like I'm not being. I'm too humble. I'm too humble. That's the issue. But yeah, I agree. Like, it's hard work, and I should promote it more. But if I don't promote it all that often, I'll at least give my spiel like I just did. But yeah, thank you for saying it is hard work. I will say I always leave my handles at that bottom bar there. One of them for some reason hasn't updated. Yeah, happy medium, exactly. One of them for some reason hasn't updated. But if you look me up on YouTube, that's where I'll be. Probably one will come up as the main and one will come up as the VODs. But yeah, that's essentially like all my stuff. I'm small and I don't mind being small. But I'm gonna keep making content and keep having fun with it, so. Okay, let me actually finish this side of the house before I get too carried away. That should be squared off now. Ow. Did I even cut down that other acacia? I don't think I even cut down that other acacia tree. No, I didn't. What? Let me go cut down the tree and stop being distracted. Wait, where even was it? I think it was over here. I hate leaving trees half cut. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna throw one of my friends under the bus. I'm not gonna name names, but he's left trees half cut before, like all over the place. Like, oh, I'm gonna go get this one log of wood, and then just doesn't cut down the rest of the tree. Like, come on, bro. You have an axe. You have the time. Cut down the rest of the tree. But then the argument is like, oh, I don't need all that wood right now. It doesn't matter. You will eventually. It looks horrible. Keep the aesthetic of the world nice. Same with like creeper holes and digging random holes and making pillars and such. Get rid of them. They look gross. Make your world look nice. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that squared off much nicer. That was screwing me up. It was off a lot. I need to add a roof to this too. I don't know. I have a tendency to build big structures and never fill them in. Thankfully, this isn't too big. But hopefully I can add some proper details to this. Let's actually add a center pole. I think that'll look nice. Nah. Same way about village paths? Yeah. There is a certain level of aesthetic, though, with village paths. Like, hold on, I can give an example. With village paths like this, especially, it's supposed to be a bridge over the water, and I get why it's designed like this. But, like, they're supposed to be messy because in reality, paths are messy. And sometimes having it be squared off can look a little fake. But on one side, yeah, it's a little gross looking. When I make custom paths for like villages and things like that, yeah, I want them to be a lot cleaner. Not grid-like, but cleaner. Natural generation is probably the hardest part about doing stuff in Minecraft. Especially buildings and towers and things. If you've ever made an island, like I've made a million islands, oh, it sucks. Because you start with a ring and then you have to keep like expanding the ring out in different shapes and sizes, and it's hard because you want it to look square and it just doesn't. It's not going to look right ever, and that's the point. It's supposed to look natural. Oh, I forgot about the door. How am I supposed to get into this side of the house when there's no door? There we go. Okay, that fixed. Wait, did I actually fix it? Let me make sure that that's squared off. Okay, much, much better. Fantastic. That was throwing me off. At one point earlier on when I was starting to build this, I ended up... I must have been talking about... It probably was... It was probably what I was talking about, Hitsuki no Taika. I wasn't paying attention. And I ended up making it one off on one side, and I realized after I had already built all the windows, it actually physically hurt me. I fixed it. There we go. So far, so good, though. I definitely need to add a bit more detail, but as it stands right now, it's a nice box with some big windows. The windows actually helped destroy the monotony because it was like a square. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay. I don't know what I'm gonna make the roof out of though. I could use acacia. I probably can use acacia. I'll see what I can do. I might not actually want to make a triangular roof this time. I do that way too often. I'm gonna leave this bar here. I did it accidentally, but I think I like it. All right, let's see. I need to go up another layer and then cross beam this with... Oh, I have to go with more birch. Man, if this was real life, like if I was actually going out in the wild and cutting down these trees, not only would I already be dead, because I'm horrible at outdoor survival, I never did Boy Scouts or anything like that, I would have a severe allergic reaction to all of these trees. Because I have tree allergies, like, up the wazoo. Crazy, crazy tree allergies. I think... I did an allergy test when I was much younger, and I still have the same allergies. But I remember, and it was on a scale from 1 to 4, and like dust and cat hair and dog hair and things like that were all on a 1, which means minor reaction, nothing crazy. Bit of a sniffle in the nose, maybe a sneeze. But like birch trees, willow trees, oak trees, any of their pollen was a 4. Which means when spring comes and all the trees are in bloom, I'm just Rocky Balboa face. Like my whole face swells up, I can't breathe. It sucks. So I'm glad that this is a virtual world where I don't have to deal with these trees in real life. That is honestly my least favorite thing about one of my favorite seasons. Like spring is probably my second favorite season because the weather's temperate and everything's in bloom and everything's pretty. But I cannot breathe for most of spring. I know that people have fall and winter allergies too, which sucks, and I feel you. And then a couple people I know have no allergies, and I'm like, how? How do you have no allergies? How are you so lucky to be alive? I'm jealous, I really am. But my favorite season's probably fall, in all honesty. I don't know. I feel like the weather is nice, everything's comfortable. There's a bunch of brilliant colors throughout the trees because they're slowly going into hibernation. And it's just a wonderful aesthetic. It definitely is the comfort and the colors. Weird alliteration there, but you get the idea. My least favorite season is definitely summer. I know a lot of people who like summer because you get to go outside and enjoy the heat, but I don't like heat. Not a fan of heat. I'd rather be frozen than sweating. Though I hate snow at the same time. So, kind of stuck kind of stuck in a double path of winter sucks and summer sucks, and the two good seasons are like only 3 months long and 3 months apart. So I have to, I'm fine for 3 months and then I'm suffering, and then I'm fine for 3 months and I'm suffering. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I would never forsake having multiple seasons. I mentioned this a little bit ago, but if I was ever asked to go somewhere where there weren't 4 seasons, I would probably decline. I need to have that the weather change to see the year pass. Gives me a good time scale. I hate logs too. They don't ever place the direction I want them to. Ow. I'm glad I stripped the birch logs because it does not look nice. I think I'll do acacia for the roof. I think that'll look okay. Weird to have a white and orange color scheme, but I think it works. It almost looks tiger-like in a strange way. This is like the front half of a mansion. It's not going to be one, it's going to be like a longhouse. It's all ideas. I haven't even started farming. I've just been so dedicated to this one build. Yeah, no, I have one chest. Let me actually go inspect what's in this thing. Oh, all the wood from before. Why don't I just grab this? I could do... No, that would look stupid. An oak roof would look really stupid. I don't want to destroy the aesthetic. There was someone who made an entire house out of every block in Minecraft just to prove a point. And I know it was a challenge and it was just to get everything together in one place, but that is what we call gross. That is what we call truly gross. I've never seen a house look like that in my life, and I never want to see a house look like that ever again. But then again, there's people who want to see the world burn and will enter a Minecraft server and go, hey, look at all this really nice stuff, and then build something out of dirt, gravel, and like 4 different colored planks. Just to prove that they are truly the chaos that this world has created. Chaos has its place. I'm pretty chaotic myself, with others. There's that old thing in old what is it called? It's not yearbooks. It's like, oh, it was on report cards back in like elementary school, where you get penalized for social behavior. And I occasionally had the doesn't work well with others one. Just because I was a little ball of chaos who wanted to do stuff myself. I feel like I've grown. I would hope I've grown. I'm not super reliant on being social, I wouldn't say. But at the same time, it's nice to talk to people. Especially people who I talk to regularly, because it's just comfort. And there are a bunch of awesome things that people can relate to. It's all about like finding shared interests. Sort of why I did this streaming thing anyway, because I don't know, I thought it would be a good idea, and maybe I could chat with people who have shared interests. I've already espoused a couple of them. But so far I've been having a really good time. Only been here for a month and a half. Said that a couple times too. I want to see if I can at least finish this top layer. I might want to save the roof for next stream. Yeah, I think I'm gonna save the roof for next stream. But I will at least finish this layer. Always finish what you start. This is a really nice village, though. It wasn't actually that far from spawn. I very rarely am lucky with world starts, like especially the. I'm gonna bring it up again because it was hell on earth, the 15-minute inventory one. But yeah, I get pretty unlucky with starts most of the time. So I'm glad I at least found somewhere that's half decent. Oh, I need vertical logs, I think. No, I need wood. I need the stupid... I'll still never get over the fact that when you put 4 logs into a crafting table, it gives you 3 wood back. Like, equal exchange, please. Oh, right, there are monsters to fight. Oh no, I need to fight? Too bad I have an axe. There's a couple crafting recipes in this game that make 0 sense. Isn't that like a 1 in 16 chance? I just randomly threw that egg and gave me a chicken. Nice. Eventually, I will definitely wrangle all these villagers in and do something with them. But for now, they can be content with the fact that I am just saddling up near their village and creating my own house. Almost like I moved here. It won't be that way for long, though. Soon I will become the megalomaniacal crazy who owns all of their buildings. But things take time. I'll have them fall into a false sense of security for a little while and then come back and, you know, have them aggressively procreate for a little while so we get more villagers, so we get them to do more jobs, so I can trap them. Cruel and unusual punishment? Yes. Do I need resources? Absolutely. But for now, I'm just building a house. Minding my own business, wink wink. And I secretly already have spies up. Seeing what they're actively doing. Alright, let's see. I think I need to cut down probably 2 or 3 more trees, and then we'll finish that layer. How does actually hold on? How does this look with yeah, no, that looks terrible. But I'm definitely gonna cut those down. Honestly, the design for the roof is probably gonna take me a while, so I'm actually glad I've decided to stop right after this. I've had fun so far though. Just playing Minecraft, talking about stuff. Purely for the fact that I don't know. There's a degree of freedom in just doing whatever I want instead of doing the creative, which, you know, gives me even more freedom than this. Or being saddled up with a challenge, which I mentioned already that I was impossibly stressed doing that challenge purely because I really, really wanted to beat the game. And it was a painful experience because I'd never actually, like, properly started and ended a Minecraft run like that before. Like, open and shut case. And having to do that with a self-imposed challenge, I didn't realize how painfully difficult it was going to be. Thankfully, I had some help with a couple members of chat who came by and helped out. But dear Lord, I will never do that again. If someone in the future asks me to do like a run or something, I'll give it my best. But as an off the cuff, like, I'm gonna do this and do it until I win. Yeah, that was a mistake. I definitely had fun with it though, and I'm glad I put as much effort into it as I did. But man, How did I do that for 9 hours? I'm not a 9-hour streamer. That's not who I am. I'm usually in the like 2 to 4 hour range. Regret. Wait, what is this path coming from? Oh, wow, the village extends out all this way? I didn't even notice. I need to make another axe so I can strip these logs. So far, though, solid progress for about 4 hours of chit-chat. Do I want these to be vertical? Yeah, you won't see them. I don't think it'll matter. I wanted to turn them into wood, but that is an utter waste. That's a waste of 4 planks. And one more for good measure. All right, let's go make an axe and shave all these. And then we'll see how that layer looks. And then I will call it for today. Oh, I have enough for an axe. Perfect. That looks so silly like that right now. Let me use something that's not wood so I don't have to continuously chop. Where did all my dirt go? Did I know what I did with it. I think I placed it. All right. Off we go. This is the fun part. It also just eats up axe durability when you do this. The number of times that I've made the door frame of my house out of logs or something, and I'm holding an axe and I accidentally right-click, and I shave the log off, and I'm like, oh, God. I hate when I do that. But, you know what? That's not bad. Realizing your house matches your entire stream. Oh, yeah, it does! I didn't even notice that. Oh, that's... that's amazing. Anyway, that's the progress we've made so far. I think it looks okay. I didn't even realize that it was matching everything. But yeah, I'm definitely going to come back next week and do the roof because I think a roof would look nice. Having it be a square looks a little strange because this is an apartment complex. Yeah, I just gotta add some blue, exactly. Maybe I'll do blue carpet, who knows. But yeah, I have streamed for almost 4 hours, which was the plan. So I think I'm gonna call it here. For anyone who was here during the stream, thank you so much for coming. I'm happy to always chat with people. For anyone who watches the VOD, hi, nice to see you as well. On Wednesday, I have the Devil May Cry discussion and ranking stream. And then on Friday, Saturday is BioShock 2. And the next week, back to Minecraft. But I believe that would be it for now. So thank you so much. And I will see you all later. Bye-bye.